4, right?
Just say we're going to close.
Okay, it is 6:28. We are calling our meeting to order. We have all members here present.
Recording in progress.
Okay, so we're opening the meeting 6:28 and we are going to adjourn to closed session for personnel 551.074, and it is 6:28. Ready? Okay, we are returning from closed session at 7:35. And is there action to be taken?
Yes. I'll make a motion to approve new personnel requests as presented by the superintendent contingent upon the approval of the ESER 3 plan.
I'd like to second, please.
Okay, motion made by Ms. Hubbard and second by Mr. Padilla. Any questions? All in favor? Motion passes 7-0.
Okay. And then 3C, right? There's nothing for 3B.
3C. Okay,
I'll make a motion to approve as presented the superintendent's recommendation to offer an employment contract to Mr. Jonathan Smith, who will be assigned the principal at Hutto High School.
You make that motion?
I did.
I'll second.
okay, motion made by Ms. Hubbard and second by Mr. Boutwell. Any questions? All,
No,
Okay.
sorry, no.
all in favor? Motion passes 7-0. Welcome.
Congratulations, Mr. Smith.
Is Mr. Smith here?
He is here, and his family's here too.
In the audience?
They're actually outside the door. I can see him.
Oh,
We let
Come in.
yeah, have him come in.
Members of the board, Mr. Jonathan Smith. So happy to have you in Hippo Nation, Mr. Smith. Would you like to say a few words?
Definitely. Madam President, trustees, Dr. Thomas, I am so humbled and so very appreciative for your belief in supporting me in becoming the next principal of Hutto High School. Hutto High School has a tremendous and respected legacy for being community first. No matter our students' race, socioeconomic status, orientation, or religion, we're all hippos. Hutto High School is what unites us. I recognize that I stand on the shoulders of amazing leaders and principals that sacrifice so very much to bring excellence to Hippo Nation. Aristotle once said that we are what we repeatedly do. Therefore, excellence is not an act, but a habit. And I am so excited to collaborate with the faculty and staff to ensure that the Hippo habit of excellence continues. Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Hutto up.
Would you like to introduce your family?
I would love to introduce my family. This is my daughter, Alana,
Hello.
and this is my son, Gabriel.
Hello. How are you?
Just finished first grade today. And my better half, Christy Smith, my wife.
ISD, we hope you have lots of orange in your wardrobe.
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
I know. All right, glad to have you.
Walk this way just a little bit and look at the camera so the folks out in
Oh, yeah.
Zoom land.
I need to tell my mom hello.
TVs, right here, right there you go.
Yep.
Awesome.
Oh, see, that's my aunt right there, Alana Tyler Farrell. Hello.
Oh,
All right, well, thank you.
Okay, that's my mom. I'm sorry. She made it on.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.
bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, if you will, join me in the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for a moment of silence and reciting of our vision and mission. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America, the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
honor
Under the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
And if you feel led, a moment of silence. Thank you. And so, ready? The vision of Hutto ISD.
Hutto ISD
Aspires to be the premier choice in education through innovation, leadership, and diversity. In the mission statement, Hippo Nation inspires excellence through academics, character, and community. Thank you. All right, and now we have a special thing. Dr. Thomas?
And here. So tonight, we say goodbye, a bit of farewell to two board members, wonderful gentlemen who've given so much of their time and energy to this school district. I want to start off by recognizing Mr. Philip Boutwell. First of all, he's receiving a beautiful plaque that I know he will place in his office that I can see as I drive out every morning. What I don't know is that Mr. Boutwell is also my neighbor, and sometimes I see him having coffee when he has those unique opportunities to work from home as I drive off to work. So I hope that I can see the sun shining on this plaque. So presented to Philip Boutwell in recognition and appreciation for 13 years of unselfish and devoted service as a dedicated member of the Board of Trustees. Mr. Philip Boutwell, we have a video that we're going to play for both of you in a little while. So I won't repeat what I said in the video, but I did my crying at the last meeting. See, I'm doing well. So I can't thank you enough for everything that you've done for this district. You have seen it through so much, through closing campuses, passing TREs, battling with budgets, and then continuing to see it flourish and continuing to see it grow. And I hope that we continue to make you proud. Keep a close eye on us because you know the work has only just begun. So on behalf of everybody, thank you, Mr. Boutwell.
Getting at it, I'm adjusting the camera because somebody just said it's pointing up.
I was pointing out.
Oh.
There we go.
Oh, no wonder they probably didn't see.
He got closer.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, here, he wants a picture this way.
Make sure you use your Snapchat filters.
That's right.
I can help you with that.
Only on my phone though, right?
And our next honoree, Mr. Edgar Padilla, we recognize you for your 3 years of service and dedication to this school district. Thank you for asking those difficult questions. Thank you for all the expertise that you brought to this board. And it's not really a goodbye. We're just letting you have a break right now. Because somehow you've got to get up to those, to over 10, 15 years. You can come back after a while. But on behalf of everyone, Hutto ISD, students, staff, and community, we appreciate your service and your love for Hutto ISD, your love for students and what they're going to do with their lives once they leave our doors. So thank you for your leadership.
Thank you.
It's on.
Try not to photobomb you.
You're welcome. All right, to everyone in virtual land, just bear with us. We have a wonderful video tribute to both of these gentlemen.
Oh, boy.
Sit back. We enjoy it.
Oh, boy.
Your celebration can hold off.
We're going to hold you hostage for another 15 minutes, Philip.
I know, right?
Mr. Philip Boutwell, Mr. Edgar Padilla, your last board meeting has finally arrived. On behalf of everyone here in Hutto ISD, staff, parents, students, and I know I can speak for many community members, thank you for your years of service as members of the Board of Trustees. Mr. Philip Boutwell, thank you for your 12 years. Thank you for being that school finance expert that we all came to rely on. We're gonna really miss you having on the board. Thank you for having that historical perspective and for always reminding us of why it was important to look back as we were trying to move forward. Mr. Padilla, thank you for your 3 years of service. Thank you for providing that post-secondary expertise and for always asking the tough questions. We shall miss that as well. But we shall not forget that we can always do more as we're trying to expand and provide more post-secondary opportunities for our students. To both of you, a personal thank you for your support and encouragement of a new school superintendent. I shall always be eternally grateful. We hope you enjoy your time without having to come to board meetings, but we know that in a few months, you're going to be missing attending 2 board meetings a month with us. And so we will anxiously await that decision of when you decide to run for the board. Again, we shall anxiously await you and welcome you back with open arms. But on a serious note, we hope that you enjoy your time that is well-deserved away from the board responsibilities and duties. Most people don't realize all of the time and dedication that's required to serve as a member of the Board of Trustees. And both of you have done it beautifully. Once again, thank you so much for your service. Now go forth and enjoy.
Philip, Edgar, there's so much to say. Edgar, you bring such a dynamic and presence to the board that is full of wisdom and so appreciated. Thank you for advocating for the work that we do. Thank you for your contribution the last 3 years to the board, both professionally and personally for me. You are appreciated, and I look forward to seeing what you do next and how you serve, because I know that that's your heart. And Philip, I cannot believe for the last 12 years, we have spent at least one Thursday night together at a board meeting. Sometimes those meetings lasted until 2 or 3 a.m. Oh my gosh. We closed schools together, we opened schools together, we served together in so many ways, and I can't thank you enough for your leadership, for the way that you invested in me, the way that you held me accountable, the way that you helped me grow as a board member. You will be missed greatly. So many fun memories we're leaving behind and taking with us, and your contribution to public education and specifically to Hutto ISD is just really appreciated as well. I am so thankful for you both. You'll be missed, and hopefully we'll see you around and
Oh, I love that
continuing to support our work and to support the Hippo Nation, and good luck with whatever you guys do next. And thank you for everything.
Hey, Philip. Thank you so much for your many years of service on the school board here in Hutto. I know that you have spent countless Thursday nights, late nights, sitting in the boardroom and not at Hall of Fame, which I suspect. I have loved serving with you. I've loved learning with you.
The bond.
And I just, again, cannot thank you enough for setting a great example of what exceptional governance looks like. So have a dizzy hippo and enjoy your newfound freedom. Let me know what that feels like.
Hi, Edgar. I just want to thank you for all the support you provided me over the last few months. I really wish we had more time to work together, but it's been a pleasure being your school board meeting neighbor. I also just want to say that your passion and dedication to our students and staff is evident in everything that you say and do. And I really hope that we can make you proud moving forward. We'll miss you.
Philip and Edgar, I wanted to say thank you for your service, the Hippo Nation, and the board for all that you do. You have sacrificed hundreds of hours of your time and energy to ensure that our schools are providing the best possible education and keeping our students safe and protected. You're dedicated, dependable, and hardworking. Two definitely big shoes to fill. But again, I just want to say thank you for your service and thank you for your voice in helping to shape a better Hutto ISD.
Hey, Edgar. Thank you so much for your years of service, and congratulations on successfully completing your term. Thank you for the wisdom and the expertise that you brought to the table as far as higher education options, especially in the trade field. I know that our district is stronger and our kiddos have more options with your leadership on the board. So again, congratulations, and I hope that you enjoy lots of free time with your puppies and your beautiful wife.
Philip and Edgar, thank you for your time and dedication that you've given Hutto Hippo Nation, and for all the effort that you put into the school board and of your time really working with a lot of decisions that we have to make. You guys, both of you, have been very open with me and with some of the new board members too, where you've given us your phone number from the beginning, given us the opportunity to call you whenever we wanted to, and taken us under your wing, and opened the door for us, for me especially, to be able to communicate when I needed help on any school board decisions or anything that we could do with the school board. So I know you guys are going to go out to the sunset and enjoy, a lot of things in life. Maybe to grow in our community in different ways, but for what you are doing and what you've done for Hippo Nation, I thank you, and I appreciate both of you being open and willing to help me and allowing me to grow too. So thank you.
Hi, Philip. I just want to say it's been a pleasure working with you, even just a short amount of time. I've learned so much from you. I will miss your humor, and I must say you asked fantastic questions. Also, I just want to thank you for the foundation that you've laid over the many years that you've been part of the Hutto ISD School Board. I hope that we can carry forward the work that you've put in place. Thanks.
pleasure working with you. I hope you enjoy this semi-retirement. I'm not sure I can call it that, but retire from the boards. Either way, you're gonna have a lot more time on your hands, so good luck to you.
Hi, Edgar and Philip. This is Lisa Patterson, your favorite HR person. Just want to come on real quick and wish you well in this next leg of your journey called life. But more importantly, I wanted to say thank you for your hard work, dedication, and all the things that you contributed to the Board of Trustees here at Hutto ISD. It's been great to learn and observe from you over the last several years, both of you over the last several years. And so my hats off to you for all that you contributed. I know that we will continue to see you, continue to see both of you in different capacities. But I want to wish you well and again say congratulations and thank you for your time at the ISD. Miss you. Take care.
Well, Edgar and Philip, wanted to take a moment to congratulate you both on your service to Hippo Nation and for all of your support and help that you've given not only the ELT, our community, but most importantly, our kids. Hopefully, as you wander off into the next adventures, you'll come visit as we wrap up some of these projects. Looking forward to getting this 9th grade center open.
Oh, that's neat.
Thank you for your vision, for your leadership, your stewardship, and all the commitments that you've given to the district through the years. We certainly couldn't have done what we've done in this community to address growth without your help. God bless you guys, and don't be strangers, come visit.
Wanted to say thank you to both you, Philip, and Edgar. And I feel I can call you Philip and Edgar now, but so excuses and formalities, I guess, for the Mr. But I was considered your friends anyway, so I probably should have called you by your first name. But wanted to thank you for your service, for being a friend of not only student, but especially a friend of the business office. Worked with several school boards in my career, and never have I had two individuals that ask such good questions, good finance questions, and knew what to say, and understood what I was trying to relay to you. And actually, the whole board is pretty good about this. You guys really were good about asking good questions, and they may seem tough, but they were the right ones. But again, thank you for your service to the district, and thank you for what you've done for me and my department and the support you've provided. I wish you all the best, and please don't be strangers and come by and see us as often as you can, and hopefully we can either join up and cook a brisket together. Edgar, you always tell me about your skills, and you'll get the golf ball some more. Those times are fun. Thank you again.
Hey, Philip, Edgar, just want to say thank you so much for your service to Hippo Nation through the years. Edgar, I appreciate your friendship, just your Christian brotherhood that we share together, and just for the way you always ask great questions and the wisdom that you brought not only to the school board, but to me when we would have just personal conversations. And I'm going to miss you, going to miss seeing you for board meetings, but I know that we'll find time to get together in personal life. But yeah, thank you so much for all that you've done for the district, and I certainly know that we made great progress just in your time that you've been a school board member. Philip, you've been on school board since almost as long as Katie and I have lived in Hutto. Here in 2008. So that's been a long time, and you've done an amazing service to our school district. The things that you've done, the legacies that you're leaving behind are special. They're amazing. Your name is on a lot of things. It'll be there for a long time, and rightly so, because you've all been so much in a very positive direction. So I will always think of you on Saturdays every time I'm watching the football game, and I see Alabama's winning. Which means I'm probably gonna be thinking about you for the rest of my life. Pretty much every time lose. So anyway, it's always been fun talking to you about school things, also just about life. And I look forward to continue doing that. I know you're not going anywhere, just stepping away from school board. But again, thank you both for what you've done. Thank you for your service, and go have fun, go rest and relax now.
Maybe a little bit.
Speech. Hold on. Terrence didn't get to participate in the video, so he just has something to say.
So just for acknowledgement, I have like 5 emails, so I guess somewhere I missed the email, but I still love you guys. Just to Philip, your family to me, you know, our kids did dance, and so you were the one that helped set the foundation for me to run for school board for the first and the second time. And so I thank you for that. And just as many other people have said, you have been the finance guy for me. And so I always tell that we all bring a unique skill set to the board. And I appreciate the times that we spent just learning from you. And I love you like a brother. So thank you. Edgar, we talked about this the other day, HEB putting gas in the car. Our first path when we crossed paths together. And it's been a journey. And like I said to you personally, and I'll say it publicly, you've made me a better person just by knowing you, our conversations, your friendship, the brotherhood. I'm a true believer in people come in your life for a reason. And I'm thankful for God for bringing you into mine. So thank you guys for your service. Thank you.
All right.
All right.
Thank you. You're dismissed.
Yeah, I guess I will.
You did that on camera, so now everyone knows you just stole something.
All right. I gotta go around the whole gamut. Enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. You know what?
Thank you so much.
Man.
Thanks, sir.
Sir. And we're dismissed.
Good luck. Good luck. I'll call you. Y'all do it. Well, they got it. All right, neighbor, we'll see you.
See you over the fence.
Busy. All right, we'll do.
Philip, you want your mask?
Yes, thank you.
My neighbor.
Yes, sir.
We're getting out of here, I promise.
Oh, man.
Where I live.
Yes, sir.
All right.
I'm just gonna high five you.
Okay.
Look with everything.
Thanks.
Enjoy your drink.
You're gonna swear.
Bye. Thank you.
That leaves us with 2 openings that we have to fill, and that is the next thing on our agenda, to welcome our 2 newly elected officials to take their oaths of office. So Mr. Batlock, want to go first? And you can just come up in the front.
Watch out for all the wires. Tell me it's always we're a few feet apart when we eat our mess.
Same thing here.
We're going to stand here in the middle so everybody can see you. Okay. Did you want to use the-
Yes.
Okay. Will you bring that up, please?
Yep.
Stand. If you
It's there.
Just watch out for the words.
Check for all the landmines down there.
Yeah, watch out, taxi.
And I get the best view.
Okay. You want to hold it for him?
Just 1 second. If y'all scoot back just a little bit so people can see. There we go.
Okay, so I'm just going to read and you repeat after me. I state your name.
I, James DePaul Matlock,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute
that I will faithfully execute
the duties of the office
the duties of the office
of trustee of Hutto ISD
of trustee of Hutto ISD
of the state of
of the
Texas
state of Texas
and will to the best of my ability
and will do the best of my ability
preserve, protect, and defend
serve, protect, and defend
the Constitution and laws
the Constitution and laws
of the United
of
States
the United States
and of this state,
and of this state.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Also, congratulations.
Just be careful walking out.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. I'm now Miss Amy English.
I thought that was dry quick. I'm sorry, James.
Same thing, you just repeat after me. I'll state your name. I, Amy English, do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute
Execute
the duties of the office
the duties of the office
of trustee of Hutto ISD
of trustee of Hutto ISD
of the state of Texas
of the state of Texas,
and will to the best of my ability
and to the best of my ability,
preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution and laws
the Constitution and laws
of the United States
of the United States
and of this state,
and of the state.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Welcome, Amy, James, to our team.
Thank you.
Thanks, coming.
Billy, we need to take a break to get them logged into.
Edgar, leave this.
We are official.
There you go. Y'all want to log in.
And we're going to take just a 3-minute break while they get logged into their computers and we can get rolling. So you guys just let me know when you're logged in.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
And congratulations to their families. What you don't know is you've all just been sworn in. How do I see?
That's where
I'm not, I don't know if I'm doing it wrong.
you should be able to. So when you logged in with the
So as we're going along, if you have questions, don't hesitate to stop and, ask on your, if you follow the leader on the top bar, you have a question you need to ask, you can click the raise your hand, and so that way we can acknowledge you to answer your question. And things will be fast and furious, so don't feel like you're not normal if you're like, hold on. It's normal. All right, are we ready to go? Okay, so we are going to move along to the district recognitions, and we'll start off with the hippos of the month. And so Dr. Thomas, do you want to tell us about that?
Yes, so as we discussed in previous months, we took a different way to recognize our hippos of the month. I think many of them are logged online. We're going to call them out by name and by campus, but each of the principals have made a video telling the students why they were selected hippos of the month. In the past, we were doing it online. It just kind of felt so impersonal because the principal wasn't face-to-face with the students. So we're going to try this approach and see if we like it. The videos are on the website. I encourage you to go in and listen to them. This way, by having that video captured, our families, our parents, moms and dads and grandmas, everybody gets to view the video whenever they have a chance. So they're really touching tributes, and we hope that all of the parents really enjoy them. So we're going to start off. Can you bring up the list, Dr. Sermani?
Want me to share with the
Yes, if you can share it with the
audience?
You have to love that smile. All right, first and foremost, we're recognizing Kenya Linwood from Cottonwood Creek Elementary. Don't you just love that smile? Congratulations, LaKenya. From Hutto Elementary School, we're recognizing Chloe Mendez, principal, Ms. Gay Rosser. Congratulations, Chloe. From Howard Norman Elementary School, we have Gavin Torres. Congratulations, Gavin. Principal over at Howard Norman is Mrs. Carrie Abrams. Lovely smile, Gavin. From Benjamin Dock Curley Elementary School, Principal Kyle Rugarello, we have Jackson Stokes. Congratulations, Jackson. From Nadine Johnson Elementary, Mrs. Bridget Reichel. And we have Alice Went. Congratulations, Alice. Love that picture on the hippo. From Ray Elementary, Principal Mrs. Alex Campbell, we have Barrett Davis. Congratulations, Barrett. From Veterans Hill Elementary, Principal Misty Patero, we have Emmett Baez. Congratulations, Emmett. From Hutto Elementary School, Principal Jason McCullough.
Middle.
Oh, what did I say? Elementary? Oh, please forgive me. Hutto Middle School, Principal Mr. Jason McCullough. We have Madeline Torres. Congratulations, Madeline. From Farley Middle School, Principal Mr. Mark Willoughby. We have Samuel Harbison. Congratulations, Sam. From River Horse Academy, Principal Drew McConaughey. We have Caramello Autry. Congratulations, Caramello. And from Hutto High School, Principal Mr. Roy Christian. We have Gavin Thurman, one of our seniors. So congratulations, Gavin, and congratulations on your graduation. All right, moving on to our Teacher of the Month. And I saw Mr. Cueva online earlier, I believe, from Ray Elementary, Principal Mrs. Alexis Campbell, Mr. Napoleon Cueva. Felicidades, Mr. Cueva. Muy bien hecho. Fantastic. Congratulations. And we also, this month, we recognize some extra teachers because these two gentlemen cannot be separated. So Teachers of the Month from Hutto High School, the awesome duo of Mr. Tony Martinez and Mr. Jeff Milam, automotive technology teachers over at Hutto High School. They've done a phenomenal job with growing the program. Mr. Christian was already asking for the third automotive teacher because they have recruited so many students. So congratulations and thank you for your work. Mr. Martinez, Mr. Milam, Mr. Cueva, thank you for all of your work during this pandemic. And our support staff of the month, this is Miss Alisa Rivera. She's the cafeteria manager at Hutto High School. And just that smile that you see is how you see Alyssa every time you run into her. She also works the ticket booth during basketball games. So congratulations, Miss Alyssa. And along the lines of recognizing our cafeteria staff, also support staff members of the month from Ray Elementary, we have Juana Alvarez, Clara Paul, and Chrissy Williams. Thank you, ladies. Thank you for taking care of our kiddos during this pandemic. And those are our recognitions for the month, and all the videos are on our website. Now, when we get to come in person next year, we'll bring everybody up and they'll get their medallions that they usually get. So we'll do those presentations in person.
Okay. We do not have any public comment tonight, correct?
We do.
Oh, we do. We have one. That's right. My apologies. We have one public comment. So the board welcomes the public and its comments. We ask that you refrain from comments about any district employees without proper due process. Each speaker will be allowed 5 minutes to express his or her comments. In our case, our Director of Communications will read the comments for them. Opinions expressed by speakers do not necessarily reflect those of the Board of Trustees or administration.
Okay, I'll try to get this in 5 minutes. It's long. All right, these comments were prepared by Simon Carter, Clay Earhart, and Michael Barrios Santana, 3 rising seniors from Hutto High School. These were finalized after Governor Abbott signed Executive Order GA 36 on May 18, 2021. The efficacy of masks has been called into question many times through studies and experiments, and the issue of masking up has become a popular topic of discussion and argument. Executive Order GA 34 passed March 2nd, 2021, rescinds Texas statewide mandate, and Order GA 36 passed May 18th, 2021, says that neither a school district in Texas nor the TEA can require anyone to wear a mask after June 4th, 2021. Being aware that the governor can reverse these orders and say that schools can mandate masks, we come forward before the board to present a case for deciding to not require masks next year, even if they become legally able to do so. The N95 mask is considered one of the best masks out there, but even this isn't proven to work. The American Institute for Economic Research published an article compiled by 4 medical doctors and 1 medical researcher with a PhD. In it, they said that the filtration potential of the N95 is 150 to 300 nanometers or nanometers. The COVID-19 virus is 120 nanometers. Moreover, N95 masks filter only 95% of particulate material, and even then, only when properly fitted. Some would argue that we can just use the blue surgical masks or cloth masks instead. But if you buy a cloth mask from the store, there will likely be a warning on the package that reads, quote, "This product does not replace N95 or KN95 masks. This product is not intended as a replacement for gas masks and medical masks, close quote. Assuming masks are at all effective, we know that a cloth mask should be more effective than a blue surgical mask. If a cloth mask is said not to replace N95s, though, then we should expect nothing more from a surgical mask, especially considering that your breath can escape from multiple places when you wear one. The CDC did an observational study on mask efficacy back in July of 2020. They randomly surveyed 314 people who went in for COVID tests at different sites across the country. 154 of these people who contracted COVID-19, and the other 160 served as a control group. The participants were asked if they were around anybody with COVID-19, if someone close to them had been in contact with COVID-19, and how often they wore masks in the 2 weeks before their participation in the study. The distributions of how often people wore masks blocked on whether they had caught COVID or not were nearly identical in form, indicative that mask wearing made little or no difference in catching COVID. In addition to all of this, there are the everyday problems we have with masks, including but not limited to impaired communication, impaired facial recognition, and impaired emotional signaling between teachers and students. According to the NCBI, mask wearing forces people to rely almost completely on the eyes to understand another person's emotions. The lower half of the face, which is covered by the mask, does a significant amount of the work required in conveying emotions. Now, what about social distancing? It's said that humans need to engage in physical touch 8 times every day. We can live without this, but to do so would make us feel isolated and lonely, which is a problem many students face already. Psychologist Jennifer Delgado put it this way: we can all live without hugs, but it would be like dying slowly a little every day. Many students, especially high schoolers and middle schoolers, are experiencing symptoms of depression, anxiety, and chronic stress. It's not just from the schoolwork. Although neither of us struggle with these, we agree that those who do should not have to struggle through the next year by distancing themselves from everybody they see and wearing a mask that is not proven to be effective. With all of this evidence pointing away from masks being effective and with the opportunity to allow students to exercise personal freedom, writers of this statement strongly encourage the board to no longer require masks, even if the board becomes legally able to do so in the future. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. Did great.
And so we'll move on to the board president's report. So this is our chance to go around, and Mr. Matlock and Miss English will get you guys some committee assignments that you'll be attending and reporting back. This would be the time that you would come back and report on those committees. Feel free to share if you have anything currently, but we'll start with Ms. Hubbard.
The board enjoyed an amazing graduation just a few days ago, and I bring that up because that's kind of like one of those big momentous occasions that the efforts that we put in place here at the board impacts that graduation. And so like kids getting to graduation. So I just wanted to bring that up, and kind of it's a celebration for obviously the families and the students, but also kind of that it's a celebration for us as well to be able to see our efforts kind of put into actualization. So that's all I have to say about that.
Thank you. Mr. Chavez?
I was not able to attend the ERI meeting last week.
You're fired.
But I will report on HRC. The golf tournament that we have put together has 90 people registered and paid for it. We have all the sponsors that we went for, even some local organizations were sponsoring our event. And it's come together, and we're only 2 weeks away from it. So it's going to be an exciting time. It's going to be a huge benefit for HRC, and HRC continues to be a big shining light for the city of Hutto.
And impacts our families.
Yeah.
Had an opportunity to attend the end of the year awards for our staff and to celebrate our retirees, and really was the first time I think a lot of people got to see each other, and first time we had an opportunity to get together. Just kind of highlight that out of all the awards, we had 4 nurses voted as campus personnel of the year, and Kendrick was district of the year. And so that just kind of goes to the hard work that that department did in this trying time that we had. So it was nice to see that the district recognized that and acknowledged that.
Thank you. Mr.
I attended the district PTA meeting, and I just want to give a big shout out to PTAs. They're doing so much for the end of year. They did. You'll see a lot of yard signs around Hutto for fifth grade graduates, pre-K graduates, kindergarten graduates, eighth grade graduates. They've just really gone above and beyond to try to make the end of the year special for all these kids. So it's really amazing. And they're going to plan to meet this summer as well. They all wanted to kind of stay in touch and continue meeting to plan for next year. So that's exciting. There was an HEF board meeting I wasn't able to attend yesterday because of the fifth grade at Cottonwood did a parade. And I have to give a big shout out to the parents because they just went above and beyond with their cars, decorating, making it exciting for the kids. And I've seen some of the other campuses doing the same, and it was just really exciting.
Good.
That's all I got.
Do you have anything, Mr. Matlock?
I was actually going to talk about the PTA meeting, but
Elaborate.
you covered it all. But
Good, thank you. Amy?
Well, I guess I could just talk about the graduation. I did attend the graduation. My son graduated and it was really nice. I got really, I mean, I think I would have been emotional because it was my son graduating, but just seeing all the kids and I just kept just being so thankful that we were able to do that. I just felt thankful through the whole thing, and it was a really nice graduation.
It was. Well, Dr. Thomas and I met with the city manager and the mayor to set our agenda and make plans for our June 10th meeting, joint meeting with the city council and some of their staff and us. So we're working through the details on that. We will be meeting over in their chambers. So be sure to note that. We'll send out reminders too, but January 10th, we'll be meeting there with a joint meeting with them. And then we'll go on to the TASB policy review process. This is one of the things that is on our recurring calendar. So I wanted to address it, but Ms. Patterson is going to talk about, right? She's going to talk about the purpose of having that on our recurring calendar and what we're doing to address that.
So to speak to the annual policy review, TASB does recommend that the district evaluate and bring in the policy committee every 3 to 5 years and do a full review of all of the policies. However, we have a very active policy committee that meets regularly as we get local updates from TASB that are recommended pretty much in occurrence with the legislative session, any other updates that are occurring because of law changes. So we don't really recommend that we need to actually bring in the policy consultants and take up 3 to 5 days of your time to review those local policies. We have a very detailed and active policy committee. We review them, all the updates that come in, they're regularly reviewed. So I believe that we're fully on tap and on top of all of our policies.
Thank you. And thank you to those of you that are on that committee. I know that takes a special gift.
I would say it doesn't, because Lisa does such a phenomenal job facilitating that. And I think one of the things that's so great about it is that when you walk away, you truly understand what those recommended changes are. And it's not just legal speak. So kudos to Lisa for leading that effort.
Thank you. And I think Henry also mentioned a couple of weeks ago that in the number of districts that he's been in, that this is one of the ones that actually spends time, and we actually give those policies the time and attention that they need. So I'm very proud of the work that we do with our policies.
I've served on that committee a few years, so I agree with that. I'm not currently on it, but thank you for that work.
Awesome. Anything else?
Any questions about that? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
The next thing is you'll notice in July, the school shuts down for a week and everybody gets to be off for that week. So that week will fall on what would normally be our meeting week. So we are going to have to make some changes to our July meetings. You'll notice for July, our two meetings will be July 1st and July 29th, which will feel a little bit like we're meeting because we will have just met at the end of June, and we'll need to meet again on July 1st for our first meeting of July, and then again on the 29th. So just note that on your calendars.
And I'll send out the calendar invitations. I sent out the one for the June 10th meeting, but I hadn't sent these out because we hadn't had a chance to discuss them. We wanted to give you a heads up.
All right. And then finally on the president's report is each year, when there's openings, we have the opportunity to nominate a board of director, TASB board of director for Region 13, which is our region. There's a current opening. The person who was doing that has served her term limit. So we have one of our members who would like to be considered for nomination, Mr. Owens. So we can entertain a motion for nominations.
I'll make that motion.
And I'll second. Do you accept?
I accept.
Okay.
The work's already begun.
You have a packet right
Yes.
here. All right.
Thank you.
Okay, so Ms. Hubbard makes the motion. I'll second.
Do we have to actually take a formal action? Yes, we do.
And ready?
Nope, but I'll fix it.
Okay, so all in favor? Motion passes 7-0. So what happens is Terrence's name will go on the ballot for the Region 13 directors, and when all that, I don't know, in July, I believe, it'll come back and we'll vote on that. Every school district will vote on.
And if I can elaborate a little bit, the process is, will be possibly a interview with Region 13. If I can garner enough support within Region 13, at least 25%, I can get an interview. If I can garner 50%, then it's an automatic. Currently, there's 2 other board members within the region who are applying, and I've already have been able to get at least 3 endorsements so far within the region. So I will be putting forth that work and effort. So thank you.
Represent us well if you get interviewed, Terrence.
Sure, no pressure.
But at least this time when the ballot comes around, we'll actually recognize the names. Because how many times do we get those forms and we're all asking ourselves, does anybody know this person? Yes.
Okay, now for the superintendent report.
All right, so for my report, celebrations, oh my goodness, the school year is finally over, literally today. So great positive ending to the school year. All of our campuses had some sort of a celebration for the kids, lots of good things happening. Mr. Owens mentioned the end of the year awards for the employees on Sunday. It was really a special event. Just kudos to Claudia Cardwell and the HEF and everyone who put it together. So graduation and everything that we did, I think, to try to make it special for our kids and special considering the restrictions that we've had in place. So to all of the campus principals, thank you. I hope you're sitting back in your comfy chairs as you're listening to this meeting and have your feet up because it's well-deserved. I'm sure you put in lots of steps today. Even though it was a short day, we know that the rest of the week was also fast and furious. So thank you for everything that you did to support our kids and support our teachers. Have a good last day with your staff tomorrow. Enjoy that day, that quiet day in the building without the kiddos.
I think we should applaud that.
Yes.
That's sweet.
Yes, we have the best principals around, no doubt. So aside from the water main break this morning, that was all the excitement that we had. But you just have to love it. So I drive up to Howard Norman Elementary School, and there's Henry standing at the corner in command there with Carrie Abrams and all the maintenance people working furiously trying to figure out what's happened with this water main break. In a few minutes, buses drive up so that kids can be shuttled back and forth for potty breaks. More maintenance crews come in. It was an entire production. I'm sure that all the families driving through were wondering what was happening. But thank you to Henry. He was in command the whole time and just kept everything under control. Carrie Abrams, of course, cool as a cucumber. And she even in the middle of all that chaos had a third grade award ceremony. And she was asking, should I go ahead and do this? Or should I cancel? I said, oh, let's just do it. I'm sure the kids are waiting to get recognized. So thank you, Carrie, for today. You win the prize for having the most excitement on the last day of school. Okay, we ended the year, our enrollment at 8568. If you all recall, our projection was 8391. We didn't quite get there. However, we still outpaced everybody else around us. So we're sitting well for next year. Monitoring turnover rates, the overall district turnover rate is right at 11%. Teacher turnover rate is right at 3.7, and we hope it holds steady. We did have quite a few resignations and retirements this year. I mean, this year, but then of course, this month, this is where you get the bulk of them. 2 retirements this month, 28 professional resignations, 23 non-exempt resignations. Miss LaJudas already mentioned the joint meeting with the city council. Those bulleted items, we decided on 2 agenda items for this first meeting, and we will hold it at City Hall. It'll be the Glenn and Sermani show. So we will cover school finance and school taxes, and we will cover UCHEC's benefit to our students and the presence of UCHEC. Item number 6 on my superintendent report, I want to alert you to an agenda item that I want to put forward on the July 1st meeting. And that is a random drug testing policy for students. Coach LaPlante approached me.
Student athletes, right?
Yeah, well, it's for student athletes, but it's also for any student that is that participates in an extracurricular activity. It can also be tied to any student who has a parking permit. So that if you have a parking permit or you're participating in any extracurricular activity, you would be subject to a random drug test. Anyhow, it does require a policy review. We would have to adopt a policy to do that, and it would have a budget impact. So just a heads up, we'll discuss it in more detail on July the 1st. And then if we want to proceed, then we would take an action item on July the 29th. And this would have a budget impact, obviously, because we would have to contract with a company to have that done. Coach LaPlante is really concerned about just the number of drug cases that he's seen with his athletes. And so he would like to have a policy in place to have random drug testing in place. So again, just an item for discussion. And just lastly, I think Linda, kudos to Linda. She's made all the arrangements for us to attend Summer Leadership Institute in San Antonio in June. So if you have any questions, just contact her. I will be taking a district suburban. So if anybody wants to ride with me, you're welcome to do so. But I'll have it there because we have a couple of dinner engagements so that we can travel together in case you don't have a car.
And speaking of the dinner engagements, be sure to accept or decline based on your availability, those calendar invites, because that's what we use to RSVP to the people who are.
At 2, right, so far?
Just 2.
Yeah, so just be sure to accept those or decline them as you're able to.
And that goes for all calendar invites.
Yes.
Yes.
It's actually a prize that's given out for the people who accept them the fastest.
Yeah, the calendar is our friend, but you're right. That's what we use to determine who's going to be here. And dinner counts are important, obviously. Okay, in your board packet, you also have your Hutto ISD PD status report. And I know Chief Edwards is in the audience, so if anybody has a question about, he's not going to present it, but if any of you have a question about that report, he's happy to address it. And last for me is the summer school. So since COVID,
We have used the board meeting to give an update on the safety and instructional plan, and obviously it's the end of the school year. What I have provided for you in the board agenda today is a draft. It's pretty much complete, but it's the summer school safety plan that we're going to use moving forward. As you know, the mask policy has been repealed by the governor, so masks are not going to be mandated. They will be optional. Anybody who wants to wear a mask, a student or a staff member may continue to do so, but it will not be mandated. But I know our summer school principals were anxious to get a safety plan in place. If you open up the document, the majority of the language in there speaks to quarantines and isolations. And as you know, those quarantines and isolations will continue. They'll be part of the landscape. Everyone still has to self-screen in the morning to make sure they're not exhibiting symptoms. Children or staff who show up to school showing any type of symptoms, the nurses will conduct not necessarily an investigation, but they'll look into the family to see what's happening with family health conditions and really look into the child. Are these symptoms part, we have children suffer from allergies all the time. So are these symptoms part of what the child demonstrates all the time, or is this an unusual situation with health symptoms? So we will continue to institute quarantine and isolation protocols. There is a difference in the number of days that kids and staff would have to quarantine based on vaccination status. But all those procedures continue to be in place. And I think it's important for our staff who are going to work the summer learning programs. It's important for them to feel that we're still monitoring while the masks are going to go away. COVID is still among us, and people can still get sick. So we have to safeguard our facilities and our students and staff as well.
So how does that work? So for fine arts, they talk about socially distanced in the guidelines. What are the TA guidelines on that? Do they still have to, or just don't work? Okay.
The Texas Education Agency has not issued any updated guidance on public health. We're going to continue. We've kept Dr. Sermani and the and the summer school learning principals are trying to keep those class sizes at manageable numbers so that when you go into a classroom, you can spread out. They're not being packed with large numbers. There'll be an opportunity for kids to be able to spread out.
And what's important to note is this is strictly the summer school at this point, just for summer school,
Yes.
summer learning.
Yes, thank you for emphasizing that. Yes. We reserve the right to have to shut down a classroom or shut down a campus if infection rates exceed that 10%, or if you have more than 2 kids who are positive in a classroom, the school nurse still has the option of making that call that classroom should be shut down for 5 to 7 days, just so that room can be sanitized and parents can monitor their children. So we'll still have some of those procedures in place. Dr. Sermani, were you trying to say something? Oh, okay.
And also last time you told us this was summer learning safety plan, not school.
Yes. Does it say summer school?
Yes.
Yes, thank you for that. It is. And I've been trying to train myself also. Yes, it is a summer learning safety plan. We'll make that note.
Nobody wants to go to summer school.
Nobody, that's right. Nobody likes to go to.
Learning.
It is. It's about summer learning, trying to make it as fun as possible.
Hippo reads.
Anything else?
No, I think for our next meeting in June, one of the goals that we have as an ELT is to bring in, we were bringing you updates on everything that we had spent that was COVID related. So what we'll do here in June is kind of compile all those numbers and let you know what those final counts were on how much money we spent on sanitation, on protective devices. The substitute cost was unbelievable. Mr. Graham had a few fits this semester with the cost for substitutes. just because we increased the rates, we couldn't get people, and I'm looking at Mrs. English and Mr. Matlock, because they might not realize this, but the cost, we had to increase the substitute rate in order to get subs to come in and help with coverage. So that really escalated the costs that we incurred for substitutes.
Can we also, when we bring those numbers back, can we also include what portion of those expenses were reimbursable, or which, how much we have already been reimbursed for some of those COVID-related costs?
Yes, and Caleb's been keeping track of all of those costs. So yes, we will.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, I don't believe that Dr. Sermani, just information, correct?
Correct.
Want to take a look at his report? And then move along to Mr. Gideon and the operations report.
Again, those are information items for you board members. Brandon's here this evening. If we all had any questions, we can answer as well as with the construction update. Later on, there's an action item in relation to a change order to the Hutto Elementary School GMP, but we made note of it in this report as well. Brandon can answer questions now, or we can wait for the action item.
So can we bring up, Dr. Sermani, will you bring up the capital improvement project slide? I think it's just important for the board to give this item some extra attention.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
We'll do that.
Oh, okay.
So for,
Sorry.
it's okay. James and Amy, just for your information, these, Dr. Sermani and Dr. Gideon will have frequent just informational items. So these will be things that you'll want to look over before our meeting and make notes if you have questions or whatever. But these are here just for our information and gives you a chance to ask questions. No formal presentation on these things. However, tonight we do have a presentation on the capital improvement plan and budget and projects that Mr. Gideon has.
Thank you, Madam President. Good evening, board. Welcome, new board members. I look forward to engaging with you and working to bring you up to speed on some information that you'll need as you get ready to think about approving budgets, and then however I can serve or assist you in any regards going forward. Wanted to pull out of the budget for this evening's focus some capital improvement projects. These are not INS or bond dollar related. These would be coming out of the general fund to both give you a chance tonight if you want to ask questions, but to be thinking about as we begin to finalize the budget process, and you take the context of the entire budget, and begin to consider what our stewardship needs to be in that regard. If you have questions over the coming weeks, we can certainly try to answer those questions. I wanted to highlight these 5 items, which are slated to be put in our budgets. The first 2, and for the benefit of our 2 new board members, the board has engaged Pfluger Associates, one of our approved architects, to develop a master plan for upgrading the 200 College Street complex, which essentially is your central administration. If you were aware of the long-range master facility planning that took place in 2019 that led to the 2019 bond, there was an initiative in there for central office improvements. Given the weight of the bond and the size of the bond, that was an item that was taken out when we went to the voters and sought approval for capital improvement projects. Nevertheless, as a growing district, while we have the burden of finding space instructionally, we also have to figure out how do we maximize space for those support departments, our curriculum department, the business office, the superintendent, and in some ways, the board of trustees in terms of its engagement with the community. So there's a master plan in play to develop or redevelop, if you will, the 200 College Street project. These first 2 items were previously approved in last year's budget. Those projects have not gotten underway. As we understand it in talking to Jessica Day, we're waiting on a certificate of appropriateness from the city of Hutto in regards to the HR facility. Our plan is to build a brand new kind of a commercial grade facility for both our HR department and our payroll. So they can relocate from where they are today into a permanent system, which is part of the master plan to improve the entire system here. Not only was this approved by the board, but the original funding amount was 1.5 million. But because we didn't start in this fiscal year, it'll have to go into next year's budget. Now, I took the liberty of bumping that by 200,000 as I did for the RHA gym and the College Street projects, given the nature of construction costs and the uncertainty of supply chains. I thought it was prudent to try to bump those up a little bit. So when we come back to you with a full budget proposal, these will be a couple $100,000 higher than what was previously approved by the board this fiscal year. The RHA gym and the College Street project, the original front building is slated to be demolished. It's not an occupiable space. It's not safe to rehab. It would be cost prohibitive for us to bring that up to some kind of category of occupancy that anybody would desire. So the plan was to level it and clean up the property, restore it, and then later on in another phase as we go forward, depending on where we are in our budget, we would begin to think about a new 2 or 3 story structure that would then begin to replace some of the elements that we have here. In addition, we wanted to salvage the old gym, which is historic to the community. It is in good shape for the most part. The funding in this is to at least renovate it to the condition of how it might have been used in the 50s and the 40s. In other words, restore it so that it kind of has that Hoosier look from back in the day when basketball was played in those types of gyms. But we also want to turn it into a multi-use space for curriculums, professional development, and for community events. The City of Hutto's Park and Rec Department has also approached us off and on about using the gym for recreation programs for kids. So it's a good project. It gives us an opportunity to go in and rehab an existing space and then turn it into some multi-purpose applications. The next 3 are not necessarily new, but over the course of the coming year and in recent budgets, we've always had to move portables around, but there's an allocation request of 300,000. This is primarily targeted at relocating 2 portables, 1 each to the middle schools for growth. We're going to have a capacity concern until we start building middle school number 3. And we would expect that to be on the ground for 5 or 6 years until that next middle school is built. And then we also have a need to rehab the existing Little Hippo portables to support our DAEP program, as well as our 18 plus program, which is growing. And the goal here is to go in and rehab those portables so that our 18 plus kiddos have a classroom and a kind of a collaborative space for practical applications, but then also create a home-like setting so that those youngsters that are graduates of Hutto High School, but yet are still in our custody as they learn to work together and be ready to move out into the real world by the time they're 22.
Can I real quick? The DAP, in case you're aware, is the stands for Disciplinary Alternative Education Program. So the students removed from their general education setting, they still go to school, but they're separated from the general population. So
thanks, Dr. Simon.
Wasn't sure if you're aware of that.
So we'll take one of those portables, rehab it so that one side of the portable will be utilized to kind of turn into a kitchen environment, dining room environment. Another side will be living quarters. It's currently housed here in this portable that is located adjacent to the HR building. But the kids that are coming up are going to exceed our ability to serve those youngsters, so we need to expand it. So this portable will be relocated to one of the 2 middle schools. And back to the DAEP, since we are growing at RHA, we're running out of room to be able to house both of those programs effectively. And with Mr. Christian's appointment to the DAEP, this gives us an opportunity to also give some space that's a little bit more meaningful and purposeful for that particular group of kiddos. Lastly, kind of am I on the rest? No, the last 2. These would be phases 2, 3 of some additional improvements that we'd like to tackle. I'd like to try to tackle the RHA cafeteria, do some rehabilitation, and again, make this a multi-purpose venue. We have a kitchen there. We have the ability to do professional development in that space, but there's some major mechanical and plumbing work that really needs to go on. It's not ADA accessible. Restrooms that say when Dr. Samani has a Lions Club event in there, they have to climb through the kitchen to go to the restrooms in the back, and they're just not up to modern snuff. We need to do some work in there. And that's a number that literally was pulled out of the air, based on estimates. But we'd like to do some kitchen renovations, turn that into more of a finished kitchen. We would continue to produce meals that might be needed for RHA or for the DAP, but it would be more of a catering kitchen because our catering services that we do work with in the food service department here also provides meals for the business office or for the central office. But in addition, your meetings in some cases, and this will give us an opportunity to kind of grab this space and rehab it and recondition it. All of these small projects obviously lead to an ultimate goal of rehabbing the entire 200 College Street project. Lastly, the transportation building for the facility upgrades that we have done starting this past spring will be completed in October. That allows us to finally move our mechanic shop, which is still located behind our curriculum department, out to the new bus barn. It leaves a very optimal space, but it's a shop that's open air. We would like to look at what it would cost to turn that into some conditioned space. Storage is a premium in our district. We don't have enough warehouse space. We don't have adequate space for testing materials, for textbooks. Technology has a small pantry, if you will, for storage. And then when they have equipment that needs to be stored, it's scattered all across the district. I'd like to take that old bus barn and mechanic shop, see what it would cost to rehab it, condition it, split it up, and turn it into something that would be more useful and ergonomic for not only those 2 or 3 departments, but as a whole for the district. So those are some items that do come up to a pretty good size price tag. Happy to answer questions tonight. Any of the ELT that want to pitch in as well. Or if you have questions as you contemplate other budget presentations that you want to call us about, we can kind of bring those together and blend them in. But happy to answer any questions that you may have this evening.
Mr. Chavez.
Would there be any revenue opportunities in the gym with the park and rec? And how about any revenue opportunities with the cafe kitchen?
Yeah, both of them would be available for non-school events. I think Park and Rec, when the city gets that reorganized a little bit, back when, I'm trying to remember Jeff White's last name. Jeff White was he may have served with you on the Hippo Nation University. The goal was, when we had talked about this before, the Park and Rec department, through our interlocal agreement, having access to that facility after hours when we weren't using it for instructional or for professional development, engaging kids and youth as well as adult leagues, and then they could use that facility after hours. I also think, and this is kind of, nebulous a little bit, but as Old Town is redeveloped and as the co-op district redevelops, and we kind of bookend Old Town and the co-op as we redevelop, there's going to be a lot of interest by the city, I think, and our citizens to seeing this environment, get improved. So our parking lots, for example, our overflows for downtown activities. And then again, I think our gym space will become a premium for events that could be put on in that. The cafeteria probably would be after hours and on weekends, but it would be a revenue stream potentially. Not a lot of money because we charge, quote, reasonable fees, but we would be able to rent those out.
And I think it's important to note that meeting space is at a premium. This is really the only meeting space that we have. And I even have a hard time booking it. I would like to be able to reserve this for just what we need for board and general meetings that we have with the executive team, but this is the only space we have, and everybody fights for it. And while I have the ability to bump people, I hate to do that to other folks. So just having 2 more spaces for PD, we have no centralized location for professional development. We've got 1,300 employees, and every department needs meeting space, professional development space. And we end up having to take up library space, which is what we don't like to do, because that means that if we're meeting in a school library, That means the kids can't come in, and that's the last place that we want to do. So these two spaces, the River Horse Cafeteria and the gym across the space will, across the street will provide invaluable meeting space.
And we still fall under, of course, the city's jurisdiction, the Historical Commission and the P and Z. We likely will have another historical meeting. I talked to Dr. Thomas today about that, in which we would bring the Historical Commission back out once the process with the architects in the city kind of comes a little closer to being completed. Kind of hoping that June or July, we can actually bring you some bids to consider as far as these projects. It may be July, based on what we learned this week from the city. And either way, we wouldn't have been able to start this year anyway because the fiscal budget's ending. But we still want to engage our community, make sure our neighbors are comfortable with what we're doing around here. You know, this town and this little sleepy school district kind of outgrew its venue. And so for a 6A school system fixing to be a future, you know, dual high school system, 12,000 students in the next 5 years, we need space at the support level, at the central administration level that is commensurate with that growth. And we've done a great job. This community's done a great job sacrificing hard-earned tax dollars to support new schools and facilities, but you also have staff that have to support those schools, and you have needs. You as a board have the need to engage your business community. And so there needs to be improvement also with how you engage your community in terms of the space that you have available.
So just important to note, this is separate from any bond dollars, correct? And the reason this is so important and so timely now is because as we will be approving our budget, so this will be part of what we need to consider. So thank you for bringing this up and giving us time to consider it. And if you guys, I'm sure you caught on, but the College Street project is all of this from behind down to the end.
What I'll try to do now, trying to remember, do we have in that shared folder that the board has access to, do we have the master plan for the College Street project in there?
I believe so, but if not, we'll add it.
Yeah, and if not, I'll also email you two directly. That way you'll have the plan that was presented probably about 18 months ago originally. And then this phase one would have included these two projects. And these would be additional phases, but we'll try to get that information to you.
What was the total cost for the whole complete build out?
Well, if I had to estimate based on the square foot needs we need about an 82 to 85,000 square foot venue. It's probably 18 to $20 million. I don't remember what we singled out in the long range plan. I think it was a little south of that, probably in the $15 million range.
And so when you're saying coming out of the general fund and the budget, are we dipping into?
Fund balance.
Fund balance, okay. That's where the money would come from.
But it still goes through your approval processes and then you adopt.
It's not going to be coming from the official budget from M&O. It's going to be coming straight from.
I think, Lynn, is that correct? Did I say that right?
It will be a part of the official budget.
Okay.
And what, more than likely with these projects, I will present to you next month, a revenue and an expenditure. And the difference, if there's a negative, if there's a deficit, it will come from fund balance.
Now, I'm not looking at it from a crystal ball standpoint, but are we looking at to have to piecemeal this for the next 2 to 3 years? Or will there be a point if we have to go out for another bond where we're going to try to interject?
I think ultimately my recommendation would be we tackle it with INS dollars. I think the option, the challenge here is we've got some critical needs. I'm not going to call these wish lists, but I will say that, you know, if we don't get approval for these projects and we decide not to fund them, we'll find other means and methods. The portables is a have to. We've got to support.
Right.
That's instructional space, right? You know, we've lived in the environment we're in, right? So, but to answer your question, yes, I think in the next year or 2 years, depending on when you want to engage your community and have that long range planning discussion, I think one of the items on that will be central administration. And major upgrades rather than nickel and diming at it.
Yeah, but that's what I was getting to. I have to go down that process. Or
you still have goals as a board of how much you want to maintain in your fund balance.
I think that's what I was kind of getting to too.
Yes, sir.
Yep. But I tell you, 3 of the bonds that failed this past May The 3 bonds that failed had central office renovations. The propositions for central office buildings don't do well.
They're tough. I think you have to really have a conversation with your community. They're not the, you know, I don't want to sound crude, the sexy projects. I mean, new elementary schools are what our families realize and they can touch. It's sometimes harder for people to wrap their head around you know, the Taj Mahals, which is not what that is, but because we in effect support what goes on in those classrooms.
And you just mentioned something too. I mean, we did tours of schools and stadiums and all that kind of stuff. I think for me, it may be beneficial when we start having that bigger conversation, maybe taking a tour of some other campuses or other admins around the district and just kind of see how that's set up and the importance of having that extra space, PD, and just the growth of admin and ELT. So.
Yeah. And I think the stewardship of the board is you want to take existing geography and existing physical space, recondition it versus going out buying new land and commercially developing. I was blessed in a former district to be able to do the same kind of project we were really talking about, using an old elementary school that was abandoned, not abandoned, but was replaced by a new school. And then we used bond dollars to rehab that. But it's one of those things in school districts where you have about, I don't know, once a generation opportunity to do a new stadium, once a generation opportunity to do a central administration. But as we grow, that's a challenge that our voters and we have to have in terms of our dialogue. What do you do with your support staff? Where do you properly house? And if we believe that learning in the classroom is supported by professional development, then we need to look at the space that we have available to make it possible for our educators to get the training they need to be successful.
Ms. English, you have something?
Yes, the $200,000 padding you referred to for the increased building supply costs now. I was just wondering where that projection came from, because it honestly seems a little low, because I've seen single family homes go up, one single family home go up $50,000 in 3 months. The cost of building costs.
You're absolutely right. We've essentially got the HR facility designed. We're waiting on this certificate of appropriateness. And when we establish the final budgets, then it's going to be designed and built to whatever you approve. So that 1.5 that was projected last fall, we've increased it by 200,000. I think that's primarily because we're seeing some lumber price. This is going to be, right, it's going to be a frame and timber type structure. So lumber prices are going up. I don't think it's going to be all the 200,000 that we need. And it's going to be a commercial type A, similar to some of the office space you see that look like homes in this neighborhood to blend in with the history, but they're actually commercial spaces. And an ADA approved and everything else. And I think that my biggest concern about the RHA gym is just, that's a huge mechanical and electrical project. We're adding air conditioning, we're upgrading lighting, gym floors in good shape. We're going to keep the old gym seating, but that's going to be a heavy mechanical, electrical, and we're seeing long lead times and some pretty crazy pricing. So I could be very off. I mean, we may come to you in July or August and these bids are blown and we may have to decide, do we go a little deeper or do we put a pause on it, you know? So we won't know until we see the bids. This is about a 5,000 square foot home, if you will, built out into offices. And then the gym, of course, it's all, it's air conditioning and lighting and sound systems.
2 things. I was watching the county commissioners meeting today that happened on Tuesday. And one of the projects they were talking about, the reference, the cost of building supplies. And they said lumber had gone up 63%. And I don't know what that time frame is, but that's to your point, that might be something to consider. And then the other thing, I think as we kind of communicate to the community about the importance of having training space, in order to have even more effective teachers, we have to have access to training. And I think about the ability to provide some of that training here in-house. You could bring, you know, professionals in if that's not a talent that we have within our district, but that gives us a lot more flexibility with training in general and getting teachers access to those trainings. So that's all I had to say.
And Dr. Shamani and his team are real creative. We find means and methods in other buildings.
Mr. Chavez.
Could you clarify back to the top 2 lines? Were these two items approved last year in the
You
budget?
approved the projects and the original funding of 1.5 and 1.5, right?
But the money was not allocated to spend, so we have to re-budget it into this.
No, it was allocated out of this year's budget, but we're going to run out of that budget. I mean,
Okay.
the budget's going to come to an end in July, right? So now we got to re-budget.
Okay, I understand it.
Makes sense. And I have this wrong. I think this was 1.3 million. I didn't change this, Dr. Thomas. I apologize. So it'd be, the new figure would be 1.5. I apologize.
All right, thank you for getting us.
Any questions over the next few weeks before we get to the actual budget workshops or the budget discussions, please give us a call or call Brandon. We'll be happy to answer your questions.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Graham.
Good evening, Madam President, trustees, Dr. Thomas. Tonight, I will be presenting to you the monthly financial report for April. All right, and then we'll start with the financial statements. The financial statements that I provide are for the three funds that the board adopts at the beginning of the year. It's the general fund, debt service fund, and food service fund. And as I said, this is the statement of revenues and expenditures, the income statement of what a private company would call an income statement. Shows revenues for the year as opposed to what's been budgeted, original budget, amended budget, and year-to-date expenditures and revenues. We are on track as far as revenues. We're at 84% of what was budgeted. We're at 101% of tax collections of what was budgeted. We are at 107% of other local intermediate revenue. And for this year, a lot of that is where our COVID revenues have been placed. Normally, that's other local and immediate sources or like gate receipts or any other revenues that is local in nature, but not tax revenue. I do separate those two. State program revenues are again our state aid that the state provides for us to supplement our education. We have, based on property values and students, we budgeted 40.8. The TEA puts us on a payment schedule. They don't give us all our money up front because they like to earn interest on the money before they give it to us. So we are in a payment class 2, which means our payments are basically spread out throughout the year. Majority of our payments come at the beginning of the year before we start collecting our property taxes. Once we start collecting our property taxes, then the state withholds their money for a couple of months, and then they start divvying up again. So we are on schedule. We collected 63% of our state aid. I checked enrollment numbers, basically being finalized, and what was budgeted is pretty much right in line with what we had as far as student attendance this year. Our ADA was a little lower, but that was kind of to be expected. As far as a percentage of enrollment. And then the last revenue is federal program revenues. We have a lot of SHARS reimbursements with basically any of our students that are qualified for Medicare and Medicaid reimbursements. That shows up in federal program revenues along with some monies we get for our OTC program. Other financing sources, this was also some COVID relief monies that we received. We received it in the general fund and then transferred it to the capital projects fund, because a lot of the reimbursements we got for technology actually offset some of the costs that we had in our capital projects fund. So that's why it shows a source here, the 772. So we received the money as COVID relief, and then we transferred it out to capital projects. So there's an in and out of some of our COVID relief. Expenditures are at 73% of budget. Again, we're 10 months through the fiscal year. We're getting close to the end. So a lot of these budget numbers are getting close to 100% expended. Some of these are a little bit higher, like function 12 is library and media services. Well, this past month, the librarians basically ordered supplies to restock their libraries for next year. We also had a payment for, we actually hire a third-party administrator to handle our SHARS contract. And so they do most of the reporting and make sure we are in compliance. And so therefore we pay them, and we actually coded that in a function 21. That's why it seems high in function 21. But that needs to be actually recoded to a function 33. And that'll be done next month. So we're going to do a journal entry to fix that. But this is as of April 30th, and we had not made that journal entry at that time. Also, food service. This is because we paid a COVID hardship stipend and a retention stipend this year. And so that normally you don't have a function 35 expenditure in your general fund. Usually that comes out of your food service fund. But these are non-allowable expenditures out of that food service fund. So we do code them in the general fund. We will bring a budget amendment to you next month to the fact that we've spent $29,000 and we only budgeted 12. We'll come to you next month for approval of the budget amendment. Move money is in there. As with all year, health services, function 33 has been above budget. Expenditures wise because of the PPE equipment that we purchased. And same thing with some of our function 51, a lot of that cleaning supplies, a lot of that was above budget because of COVID. But all in all, we're doing well. We have a $9 million surplus in our general fund. We're basically going through about $3 million a month right now. We're generating about $3 million in revenue and having about $6 million in expenditures. So again, I anticipate we will end the year with somewhere around $1 or $2 million surplus to go into fund balance. Any questions on general fund before I move on? Okay, we'll go to debt service. Oh, I'm sorry. This is another report I give. The first statement of revenue and expenditures shows you expenditures by function. This one shows you expenditures by function and object. It's called an object code, and this is part of the account codes. So it breaks it down into payroll costs, professional and contracted services, supplies and materials, other operating expenditures, and capital outlay. So each fund is broken down into those categories. So you can see individually for what part of the budget is where it's spent. And so if you go to the end of the report, Dr. Smani. Yeah, so you can see what our total payroll cost, budget and cost, professional contracted services, supplies, materials, other operating expenditures, debt service, and capital outlay. Okay, debt service fund. This is basically the district's mortgage payments. It's the payments we make every year to meet our debt obligation, to pay for the bonds that we have sold, the authorized bonds that we've sold to pay for our capital projects. We've made our two payments. We make those in February and in August. And so those payments were made. And so basically the activity for the debt service fund is done for the year. We had debt obligation of 18.2, and we generated revenues through tax collections of about 18.6. So we will have about a 400,000. But we have a little bit more tax collections. I suspect we'll probably collect another 80 to 100,000 in debt service before the end of the year. So we'll probably have about a $500,000 increase in our debt service fund balance. Any questions on debt service? Okay, we'll move on to food service. Because of COVID-19, we ran a deficit in our food service. Normally, we do always run a surplus. We actually contract out with a food service management company that guarantees a surplus on normal years. When there's a year like this, we had very little attendance, as you know. We had a lot of virtual students, so there wasn't a lot of meals being sold. And so therefore, we ran a severe deficit in our revenues. we tried to offset those with a reduction in expenditures because we didn't need, if a cafeteria staff left, we didn't replace that person. Because obviously, if we're not serving as many meals, we're not needing as many employees. The food service staff has done a really good job this year. They were put under a lot of pressure and they came through. But we just didn't have the kids to serve the meals. So we're looking at a $5 to $7 million deficit. I mean, $500,000 to $700,000 deficit. We had about $600,000 fund balance. So we will expend that fund balance. But I did contact TDA, and we are allowed to grant a loan from the general fund to the food service fund, and that's what we've done. It's one of these things that didn't need to be approved by the board, but I'm going to let you know that we do have records in our office. We had to maintain a record. We had to put it on record that we did, and we did a $1 million loan from the general fund. That loan will be repaid in subsequent years as we run surpluses in the food service. TDA does not allow us to keep a food service balance above, I want to say it's 30 days, 35 days. It's a lot lower than general operating. They don't allow you to basically charge more for meals. They want to keep the meal fees in check, so they don't allow us to create a large fund balance in there. But so that's why I did a loan, because then as we build that fund balance up, instead of having to deplete it by either giving raises or buying equipment, we can pay that loan back. Any questions on food service fund? Yes, sir.
Is the federal revenue line on food service, is that tied to number of meals sold, or is that?
Yeah, that's we get a reimbursement by the government on qualified meals that are sold to the students. So it's a qualified lunch or breakfast.
Less students, less reimbursement.
Right, less meals, less reimbursements.
The high school really took a hit because we allowed juniors and seniors to leave campus for lunch. So Popeyes and Wendy's, they all loved it. Next year we'll go back to only allowing seniors to go off-site for lunch.
We did that as a COVID move to
Yeah.
spread the kids out.
Right.
And a big majority of the reason that is because our cafeteria is just not big enough to handle full grades. And with the expansion and renovations, we hope to revisit that. Any other questions on food service? Okay, the next part of my report is basically just a narrative. Basically what I've been telling you right now is in written form. Gives you a little explanation of the revenues and expenditures in the general fund, debt service fund, and the food service fund. Again, I kind of explained why some of the functions were a little bit overspent at this time of year. And then again, just brief explanation. And when I said that TEA likes to keep their money, that gives you the payout, what TEA does by the month. Go to the next page. And just brief explanation of the revenues and expenditures. Again, I wanted to underline here and just bring to your attention about the loan that the general fund did give the food service fund. Every month I try to, if the Federal Open Market Committee, the feds issue a statement on the economy, I basically try to relate that to you because a lot of what they do affects our debt service, affects when we may or may not issue new debt or refund debt. So because of COVID and the world we've been living in for the last year, interest rates, the Fed has kept interest rates basically at zero. And that's basically try to prop up the stock market because it doesn't allow a whole lot of return on your money on bonds. And so they've done what they could to keep inflation in check. This is the first time they issued a statement in April 28th. This is the first time they kind of had indicated inflation. Inflation will have a profound effect on interest rates. We will probably come to you sometime in August or September to go out for our next bond sale. Because of the interest rates environment that we're in, we want to try to get as much out and sold right now to take advantage of these low rates. I anticipate that interest rates may start kind of ticking up a little bit. You kind of have seen that in the market lately. And they really started trying to tick up, but then they came back down a little bit. But I just think it's time for those rates to start coming up a little bit. So we'll come to you in a couple of months for another issue, another bond issue, and that will basically be a sale for the high school renovation. April 30th, the district's portfolio consists of investment pools of 95%, money market mutual funds of 1.7, and cash of 3%. We try to keep as least amount of cash as possible because that gives us the least return on our money. There's really not a lot of activities out there because of the fact that we deal with taxpayer money. There's not been a lot of investment opportunities, and rightfully so. We have to be very conservative in what we do. We don't really want to take on a lot of risk with taxpayer money. So we do have some monies that are laddered out to longer term investments, but most of our money right now are in pools because of the interest rate environment. General fund had 45.9 million, debt service 19.6, food service was down to $139,000. Construction fund was 66.2, and activity fund had 1.1 million. We'll go on the next page. Right here is just an overview of our tax collections and gives you a comparison to the previous year. Tax collections are higher this year based on the fact that property values have gone up. And so therefore, as the property values go up, we are able to generate additional taxes. This report here shows both M&O and INS tax collections. Okay, so that concludes the narrative. Again, this is our investment report, breaks it down by fund and classification. As I mentioned earlier, most of the funds that we have are in investment pools right now.
Mr. Chavez, did you have a question here?
Yeah, just a quick glance back at the general fund report, assuming we're looking at a report that is 12 months rolling.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so if we look at the estimate going forward for 2021, 2022, with the new school, and we've touched on this a little bit in the past, but with the new school and the new expenses, new payroll, are we projecting anywhere close to these numbers, or are we looking at a much higher number on the 84 million?
Yeah, let's go back to the general fund. The general fund will end in June. So most of the expenditures that are going to come along with the ninth grade center and opening a new campus, they will be in the next year's budget.
Okay.
And that's what I'll bring to you next month for approval. So most of those are in there. This right here is through April, but our fiscal year ends June 30th. And so we will start a new fiscal year in July.
Okay.
And that's why next month I will bring to you the 21-22 budget for your approval.
You shared a little bit of those numbers, but nothing in major detail.
Giving you some preliminary numbers based on what we're finishing up. Matter of fact, next week or when we get back from Memorial Weekend, we have a few more days of budget meetings. We're meeting with campuses and department staff right now to get their request in. And once that's done, we'll finish up the payroll. We'll get those compiled, get the capital projects that Henry just explained, put it together, get a good picture, go back and see if there's some things that we need to cut, and then we'll bring that to you at the June meeting.
Okay, thank you.
We'll go on to the next one. And then this is just an overview of tax collections. It breaks it down in current year tax collections, delinquent tax collections, penalty and interest that the district collects in totals. And again, this is both M&O and INS combined.
Mr. Matlock.
Have you seen the collections rate change over the past?
No, and it's funny. We really anticipated that our collection rate would dip this year. But it's been the opposite. And it's kind of been a product of COVID. there hadn't been a whole lot of traveling going on, so people have travel budgets, they have personal travel budgets, and it seems like they've done two things with that money this year. They've done home renovations and they've paid their taxes. And so our tax collection rate is actually higher than it usually is. And so people have paid those. And again, the only thing I can anticipate is the fact that spending in a lot of other areas in their budgets were eliminated or cut back quite a bit. So we were really felt fortunate about our tax collection. You can see here for our current tax collections, we're at 98.98, and we will get really close to 100. That's really close to where we'll be. We'll be about 99. We still have several months to collect on current collection, but we're real close, 98.98 on our current collection.
Are you expecting any of this large refunds going back out for protests?
Not any more than usual. And I get those estimates, especially for this year's values. I'll get those estimates from the appraisal district. The difficult part, there'll be a lot of people protesting, but a lot of those values that people are getting right now, and I know and we'll go over this in a little bit, we have a 25% increase on our value this year. It's the most that we've ever witnessed. Fact of the matter is, most of those values come from comps. And it's hard to go to the appraisal district and say, I can't believe you think my house is this much when the one across the street just sold for that. And so, yeah, there'll be some protests made, but I don't anticipate that, if it goes to the appraisal board, that they'll approve any more than they normally do. Okay.
And the comps are coming from the fall, not even the most recent comps when they put those appraisal numbers together.
Right.
So the values have gone up substantially, even just in the last 3 months.
Right. That's my financial report. Any questions?
Oh, it's always a fun numbers.
Oh, yeah.
Look at.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, the next report, we're going to kind of go over, we briefly talked about this last month, and we go in a little bit more depth about our tax rates. Obviously, whenever there's huge increases in appraised values, then everybody is seeing a little more attention is placed on tax rates. And I explained this a little bit last month in the fact that we have two different tax rates. We have an M&O tax rate and we have a debt service tax rate. And for the most part, those tax rates are pretty much set by A, state law, or B, by the fact that you don't want to go default on your loans. No more than you want to default on your mortgage payment. So we set an M&O tax rate based on what TEA tells us we can do. TEA basically in House Bill 3 said, we're going to build in a tax rate compression, which basically said, okay, school board, instead of you really being able to set your tax rate, we're going to do that. We don't trust that you will compress your own tax rate. We don't trust you that if values go up, that you won't just continue to just take as much as you can. So what we're going to do is we're going to compress the rate. So whenever the values go up, we're going to make sure that the rate goes down to get property tax relief. Now, I don't oppose that. I don't like that it's basically taking local control out of your hands. You're the one that formally sets a tax rate and adopts it, but you're going to adopt what TEA by law is telling you have to. And so TEA basically says, by law, you cannot adopt a tax rate higher than this number we give you. Now that theoretically they said, okay, now it's your choice on what you want to do. You can as a board adopt a lower rate than what they say. You cannot by law adopt a higher one, but you can adopt a lower one. But the way the funding formula is, the state gives a portion of their budget to education, but it's a supplement to property taxes. And so it's a combination. And normally it's an inverse relationship. The more taxes you can raise, the lower amount state aid is going to give you. The lower your tax rate or values are, and the less amount of taxes you can raise, the more the state will give you. So it's an inverse relationship. The state says, based on this number of students you have, you can only have X amount of dollars. That's what all the equity lawsuits have, that's what Edgewood ISD basically started the whole equity issue in public education. They were basically saying, hey, in a poor district with low values, we can't raise as much money. And so therefore, we cannot offer a quality education to our students, and they're being penalized only because they were born or live in a certain area of the state. There's a lot of credence to that. And I, for one, support that. I think a child in every part of the state deserves the same education. I don't think a student in Highland Park ISD deserves a better education than a student in Hutto ISD. I understand the equity issue. So therefore, that's why you have an inverse relationship. The state says, okay, property poor districts, if you cannot raise much tax money, we will supplement it with additional state aid. So that's where we stand. And so therefore, the state says, okay, Hutto ISD, you can have X amount of dollars based on the number of students you have. Now, tell me, how much taxes, how many taxes can you raise based on a 96 rate? And then we say, we can raise X amount. And they said, okay, we'll fill in the gap. We'll give you the rest. And so therefore, if we bring up the tax rate discussion slide.
The one with the PowerPoints?
No, not yet. Oh yeah, the PowerPoint.
Let's see, where did I? Oh, hold on, let me share it. There you go, this one.
Okay. So we'll go to the first slide. We'll just talk about some of the trends. Okay, so here's the property value trends for Hutto ISD. As you can tell, for many years, there's been pretty heavy increase in the property values for the district. We just received about 2 weeks ago our certified estimate from the appraisal district. What they do is in April, they'll come out, the appraisal district will come out with certified estimates. And then in July, they will come out with certified values. So when all the protests are done and everything is settled, they'll certify the values and we'll get that. But we'll adopt our budget in June. That's why we will not adopt a tax rate until September. And the reason being is we can't adopt a tax rate until values are certified in July. So we'll adopt the budget and then later we'll adopt a tax rate to support that budget. But as you see, the values have this year especially is the highest increase I've seen. Matter of fact, I sent the state aid template to Omar Garcia. He checks my work and I always get his blessing before I figure out my state aid. And he goes, Glenn, I think you've kind of made a mistake on your values. You've got a 25% increase. I said, yes, sir, we do. And so therefore he was like, I can't believe that. And I'm like, me neither. But turning cornfields into living rooms and people are putting the houses for sale and getting bids 10, 20% above asking price. That's what happens. So anyway, our estimates came in at 5.1 billion, which is a 25% increase. You can go to the next slide, Shimani. And again, this is just a graph. It shows you a steady increase since 2015-16. And those are in billions. You can go to the next slide. And so therefore, what has happened since those values have increased, your tax rate has compressed. So for an M&O tax rate, it was at $1.17, and then House Bill 3 kicked in. And so that's where the tax rate compression started. So the tax rate at Hutto ISD was $1.17 per $100 value. And then in 1920, when House Bill 3 kicked in, it compressed it to $1.06. Well, then our values got even greater in 2021. So therefore it compressed it to $1. And now with our proposed and certified values, when I enter it in the template, the state is saying to you, Hutto ISD, you cannot adopt anything greater than 96.3 cents. So by law, you can't go any higher. Dr. Smart, you want to go to the next slide? And so again, this is just a graph on tax rates. And you can see the total tax rate is this brownish graph, and it's just been decreasing. As the values go up, your tax rate goes down because of compression. We go to the next slide. Okay, so what's that mean? Again, I said it's an inverse relationship. look here, state aid in 15-16, they were actually paying us more than what our local taxes could generate. And then again in 16-17, that happened. But then in 17-18, the values kept getting higher and higher. Therefore, it switched. We started getting more local taxes. And because of that, state says, okay, well, then we're not going to give you as much. And then 18-19, our values kept getting higher. And the state said, okay, since you can raise taxes, we're not going to give you as much because you're only allowed a certain amount of money. And then that continues. 1920, you see what's going on. Well, this is when tax rate compression started. So the gap shrunk. We were paying 11 million more in local taxes. We were collecting 11 million more than what the state gave us. And then once compression hit, once HB3 hit, then we were only $4 million. So it was a property tax relief bill. And that's what happened. The state said, okay, Hutto, you can't do $1.17 anymore. You got to drop it down to $1.06. Well, because of that, we didn't collect as much taxes based on value. And so they made up the difference. The state said, okay, since we're going to make you lower your tax rate, you're still allowed the same amount of money. So therefore, we're going to have to kick in a little bit more. And that's what happened. However, our values keep going up. And again, so the gap's getting a little wider. So it was 2 million, about 4 million here stated, about 4 million. And now with our 25% increase in property values, the way the formulas work, it looks like we will be collecting 50 million in property taxes and 33.9 in state aid. Go to the next slide.
So we're looking at a 5-cent reduction in the tax rate?
From $1 basically to down to 96, 3.7, I believe it is. So you can see this is where we were going. House Bill 3 kicked in, so the gaps shrunk a little bit. The left side is local taxes, right side is state aid. And now the gap's starting to widen again. And eventually, if this continues, the district will fall in Chapter 42 or Robin Hood. And that's another thing about it. The state says, okay, well, Mr. Rich District, your taxes generate so much money, you're getting too much. You're getting too much. So we're going to take some of it and we're going to give it to poor district. And there's the Robin Hood plan. When House Bill 3 kicked in, there made a major adjustment. The district is actually about to hit Chapter 42. It's 49 now. But 49, it would have been the year, not this year, but it would have been 18-19. The district would have been paying in Chapter 42 and 18-19 if House Bill 3 didn't kick in. So it raised that threshold. We're not there yet, and we won't be there next year. But if this continues, if we continue to have a 25% increase in value without getting about a 25% increase in students, then the district will be in that Robin Hood plan again pretty soon.
Glenn, do you know what that threshold is, what the amount per child is? When
We're not there yet, and I've got to recalculate. It's kind of like, all right, when House Bill 3, I didn't have to worry about it, so I really didn't pay attention to it. But after this happened this year, it made me go, I better start looking at that again.
And it's a wealth per child, isn't it?
Wealth per child, right. Mm-hmm.
So there's no way we're going to grow by 25%, especially if we can't get lumber, people won't be able to get to their houses. Well, yeah, and I guess that's the only thing that.
It's not stopping the subdivision.
No, but we've got an updated Templeton demographic report coming up here in another week or two. So we'll see what that report says about incoming numbers.
It'd be interesting to see that report from last year, what they predicted.
Well, they had the last report predicted an 11% student growth.
Yeah, on average.
On average.
So we'll go to the next slide, which is, do you have any questions? We're going to get into, when I told you earlier that the state says you can't go above this, you can dot the lower one, but you get penalized for it. And it's that inverse relationship. And it's because the state says, all right, Hutto, you tell us what you can do on your tax side, and whatever gaps left, we'll fill it. But the state also says, okay, Hutto, there's the rate you have to adopt. Now, if you want to go lower than that, then if you're not going to do your part, if you're not going to have your effort to raise money and raise taxes, then we're not going to put our effort. So if you're not going to adopt a 96.3, you can go lower if you want to, but every time you do, we're not going to give you as much money either. And the reason being is, if the state said, okay, if you want to drop your tax rate, that's fine. We'll just keep raising our state aid to make up the difference. And I would propose to every one of you to adopt a zero tax rate, right? There you go. Adopt a zero tax rate. And the state says, okay, well, then we got to fit the whole bill. But the state knows that. And everybody in the whole state would adopt a zero tax rate if the state said, we'll make up the difference. So they said, we'll make up a difference as long as you do 96.3. But if you go lower than that, we're going to start taking our money too. So if you adopt zero, we're not giving you anything. You have zero money. Okay. So we'll bring up, we'll go through. You can do either one. You can do, yeah, we'll just do that.
You want to do the one you can tell?
No, we'll do the Excel. But go to that.
First one?
Yeah.
I got to share the screen once.
So here, I updated the numbers. I kind of showed this graph last time. This basically shows you what will happen. Like I said, the state says, Hutto, you can adopt 96.3. And then whatever you raise, we're going to give you about $84 million. So if you can raise 50, we're going to give you 34. Okay. But Hutto, if you drop your tax rate to 95.8, which is half a penny, then therefore it'll reduce our tax revenues by 252. But the state says, okay, we're going to keep 22,000. And you just go down. If Hutto wants to drop it 1 penny, then it'll reduce our taxes by $500,000, and the state's going to keep 44 million. So we'll lose 549,000 for 1 penny. And basically you just go on down. If the Hutto wanted to adopt 5 cents lower than what the state says we can, state's fine with it, but they're going to keep 215,000 of their dollars. So again, it's just built in. They know that if they didn't have this, we'd adopt a zero tax rate. And that's what I would suggest you to do. If you could adopt a zero tax rate, then the state says, fine, we'll give you 84 million. Well, then that's what we would do, but that's not what they're going to do. So theoretically, your hands are tied on the M&O. Okay, so you want to do that. It's hard for us to keep telling our legislators, keep funding us, keep funding us, keep funding us. And then we adopt a rate here and we defund ourselves. Yeah. So it's kind of hypocritical if we're constantly telling our legislators, please, please keep funding for education the way it is. And then you turn right around and adopt a rate that defunds yourself.
So what would happen if, let's say you did the 91.913 and we have a reduction of $2.7 million? How would that affect the school district as far as personnel, programs? What would we have to get?
Well, you either take it from fund balance or you start cutting programs and you start cutting. It's the same thing I've always said, payroll is 80-some-odd% of our budget. So if you really want to make up millions of dollars, you eliminate positions. That's the, a payroll impact.
Ms. Hubbard.
I think one thing that would be very powerful for us to look at when we're talking about these conversations is while we're showing a total reduction in revenue, it still would be interesting to see if we were to adopt that particular tax rate, any of them, honestly, compared to the total revenue that we received last year. So we recognize that we would be potentially, if we look at the 0.958, potentially we're leaving $274,000 on the table. However, I suspect that's still more in revenue than we would have gotten last year.
You're right. We're looking at close to about $6 million more in revenue this year. But the reason being is because we're expecting 800 more kids. The state wouldn't say you can have $6 million more out of kindness of our hearts. They won't do that. They're going to say you can get 6 because you're expecting 800 more kids. So because we have 800 more kids, we need more teachers, we need more staff, we need more supplies. And so that's why we generate those revenues.
But we all are also going to take it, the increase in property value is certainly going to work in our favor in that regard as well. And the reason why I bring that up is because there is the element of affordability, and a lot of our staff live in our community. And so I think that that's something that we would also want to look at when we're making these decisions, because I think it gives you a bigger picture. While there are certainly more costs associated with more kids, I think that gives us a truer picture of it gives more information. So everyone walks away feeling, I made this decision with all the information.
Well, if we anticipated no growth, no new kids, then that rate would be even compressed even more because we don't need the money. And the state says, Hutto, you don't need the money. You're not getting any new kids. And so even though we're getting the new kids and that state says, okay, you get new kids, so you need more money. However, we're still going to lower the tax rate because you don't need as much as what your property values are going to produce for you. Again, how many kids you getting? This is how much money you get. How many kids are you getting? It's no different. We're growing and we're very fortunate to be doing so. Austin ISD is raising values and losing kids. And then it's a tough proposition because the state says, you don't have kids, you don't need any money. And so that's where you start looking at huge deficits in your budgets. You start looking at closing schools and cutting programs. So we're very fortunate to be in this growth environment that we're in. We'll go to this tab here.
Mr. Chavez, did you have a question?
Sorry.
Yeah, I hear the comments from homeowners here in the city about the taxes and that, a lot of times they think we're raising the taxes, but in reality, it's a tough situation for all of us, but we're given 25 cents compared to 2016, 2017.
Yeah, the tax rate has been going down
and it's
for several years.
It's a great deal for us. Fortunately, the values are going up.
Because the value's going up, the rate's going down. Unfortunately, the rate's not going down at the same rate as the values are going up. So you're right, your tax bill, when you open it, it's not the same. It's higher. But the tax rate is lower, but the reason it's higher is because we have to fund the growth of our students. That's kind of the gist of it. Another thing that's really tough on taxpayers in Hutto is the fact that we're so residential. It's very unusual that 75% of our value comes from residential properties. If we had a large commercial plant, or if some of these cornfields would turn to commercial instead of residential, that would really ease the burden on a homeowner because that puts a lot of the onus onto that commercial property. And usually, and I've said this before, our debt rate is high because our tax base is so low. We have to raise the taxes because we have to fund the growth and therefore, but we don't get to spread out that burden on a bunch of commercial properties. Round Rock's tax rate is so low because they have so much commercial property. And so therefore it takes a lot of that burden off the homeowner. And so unfortunately, we're not in a situation, we're mostly a residential community.
Well, I think some of the goals that we need to, as a city, to look at is to work with the EDC and attract some of those bigger clients in here.
And it's funny because I briefly had a conversation with the mayor at a Rotary Club, and he's like, well, the reason we can't get any business is because our tax rate is so high. It's a catch-22. Yeah. And so when you're trying to attract some business, you say, okay, but look, if you would come and bring your $3 billion factory with you, look what our tax rate would do. It would plummet.
Yeah.
And so that's what you got. But whoever's in those conversations need to understand what happens, the relationship of tax rates and property values.
Well, I sure hate to shoot ourselves in the foot because we really don't have another decision but to adopt the 0.96 and go in that route, because if we take less than that, we're going to really hurt ourselves at some point and be able to give a raise to a teacher or to programs.
It's great to take a little away, but at some point you're going to have to ask it back, and it sure hurts a heck of a lot more when you ask it for it back. And at some point you would have to do that. Again, to go and say to turn down state money is just something I would never advise.
Mr. Matlock, did you have a question?
Thanks, Sheriff.
It was answered.
Okay,
Thank you, sir.
We'll go to the next tab.
we have a couple more
I'm
questions.
sorry. I'm very sorry.
We're raising our hands online, so you
Oh,
can't
you
see.
you can't see that hand.
She can see it. I was just wondering if there's a way for us to kind of project how many additional students we expect, the cost of those students, so that we know the amount and can justify the increase like Morgan was talking about from like last year to the next year.
And TEA basically says it costs you $6,120 to educate a child, $6,160. So there you go. Now, does it cost that? We would really have to put the numbers together, but the state says we've come to the conclusion on a regular ed student, it costs $6,160. So that's what you're going to get. So that's what we have to work with. Now, it costs more for a special ed student, so there's different weights. You get a different allocation. There's a different weight for a career and tech student, dyslexia. So there's a lot of different allotments, a lot of that the state provides on a child that's not. And so it's pretty easy to determine your revenue per child. And if you want to say, well, what does it cost to educate a child? Well, you basically could say, okay, let's at the end of the year, what did it cost to run the school year and how many kids did we have? You know, it's hard to, I mean, I look at it as a big picture. We're gonna build an HR building. Well, you could say, well, is that really a cost to educate a child? Well, in my mind, it is, because we're all a team and everything that we do is to work to educate a child, even if it's not a direct impact in a classroom. However, someone may say, nah, it's really not. So let's cut all the administration out. Let's call that. And there's a lot of reports and we will present a first report in October. And it really kind of breaks that down. What are your administration costs? What are your instructional costs? What are your student services? What are your transportation costs? And it'll break it down. And there are thresholds that TEA will basically give you a bad rating if those non-instructional costs are higher than what they should be. And so there's a threshold for administrative costs, and we are always, I can guarantee you, Hutto ISD is always much lower than what the state says. This is an acceptable administration cost. So we'll present that in October. It's called a FIRST rating, Financial Integrity Rating System of Texas. And it'll break down those costs, and we'll share that with you at a later time.
Mr. Owens.
Is this the presentation you'll do on June 10th?
Yes, probably expand on it a little bit, but this is pretty much what we're going to do.
And Ms. Hubbard.
What month do we adopt the tax rate?
That will be in September.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, I'll probably bring that to you in August. September 15th is the deadline. I can't go past September 15th. And so unless we did something on our first September meeting, which we usually don't have any action items, it'll be the August month. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Now, I've talked to you about how your hands are tied on your M&O. Theoretically, the taxpayers really do determine what the debt service tax rate is because they vote on everything that we spend in the debt service. We go to them and we say, this is what we want to spend on this, this, and this. And they either say, okay, or no, forget it. You can't do it. If they say, okay, then we issue the debt that they authorized us to do. And then we, excuse me, we set a tax rate to meet our debt obligation. So they've pretty much authorized you to go ahead and incur more debt. And they expect you, and everybody would expect you to meet your debt obligation. You wouldn't default on your loans. You just wouldn't want to do that. You wouldn't want to default on your mortgage payment. So therefore, what I do is I determine what of our property values, and then I'm going to set a tax rate that will generate revenues to meet that debt, meet our principal and interest obligation for the year. So therefore, theoretically, go to the polls, and even though they don't sit there and actually approve the tax rate, they do approve how much debt that you can incur. And so therefore, I will set a tax rate that meets those obligations. So the state pretty much determines what your M&O is, and the voters of this district determine what the debt service is, theoretically.
And currently that is for us.
46 cents. And again, that's high. The highest you can adopt is 50. Well, there are some provisions which you can above 50. The highest you can do, but again, that goes back to the fact that we are growing. And so because our student growth is so high, we need facilities, we need schools. We don't want to put them in portables. We want a good learning environment. So we need good facilities and therefore, but our tax base is low. Again, if, you know, Round Rock's tax rate is so low because they have such a huge tax base, generate enough money to pay their debt service. We just don't have a lot of availability to meet our debt obligation with a $5 billion tax base.
Mr. Matlock.
So next year's debt service amount is going to go up like 1.1 million. You had mentioned earlier possibly doing another issuance. Is that because the tax rate remained the same at 0.46 from year to year? Is that taking into account a possible new issuance, or would that new issuance have its first principal and interest payment in the following school year?
Now, we're going to, I will propose to keep the debt service tax rate at 46 cents in order to build bond capacity, debt capacity. Because again, by law, we can't issue debt that we cannot pay for at 50 cents or less. So if we issue too much debt and we don't have much tax base, and that means that we got a debt 51 or 52, then we can't do it. And so what we're trying to do is sell as much as we can now while the interest rates are so low. And so therefore we want to keep the tax rate the way it is in order to build as much capacity to go out. I've been working with our bond counsel, our bond financial advisors, and spoke to him last week. Originally, we were going to sell 42 million this upcoming August, but because of the values going up, we are now going to be able to sell 47 million, and we want to, because there'll be very few opportunities in the future to lock into these interest rates right now. It's no good because we can't earn any money on our investments, but it's great if you want to start issuing some debt right now. It's no different than if you wanted to buy a house and lock into a mortgage rate right now.
Do you have any upcoming callable bonds that we can refund?
They'll not for,
when's that next?
I want to say the next one is in 22 is the next callable, I believe. So we'll look at refinancing at that time. And we just did that last month. We actually closed on that today. Henry, can you please give me a bottle of water?
Yes, sir.
So good information, and all of this is in preparation for us to vote on our tax rate in August, set that tax rate in August. So there's a lot of education that happens with our community and when we do this. So good information. Thank you.
And so here's one thing I want to kind of point out. You can see what happens if we lower the tax rate by 5 cents. It's going to cost us $2.7 million. Well, what's that do to average taxpayers? So let's look and see what happens. So we'll go to that tab. I believe the average home value right now is about about $280,000 in Hutto. I'm not sure. So if you want to put in 280.
What's the average cost?
It's probably like 325.
Is it? Okay, well, it goes up about 10 every week. So let's do 325. Okay.
You gave us this chart 2 months ago, and I was amazed at the numbers. It was not that much.
And that's what like I say, at 5 cents to us is a lot of money. And I hate to sit here and say 5 cents for individual taxpayer. It's not, but because it is. And I'm not here to say that $1 taxpayer money is not something that we should be careful with, because it is. But if you, so what'd you say, 325?
1 second, I'm not sharing it with the rest of the world. I need to stop and switch the share. $325?
Okay, so I wonder if did it convert, put in 250 again.
It did, it changed.
Did it change? Okay. So 5 cents on someone with a 320, and again, I put in the optional homestead. I mean, not the optional, but your homestead. I did factor that in the formula. So 5 cents for that person is $150. So anyone with a home that's valued at 325, if we dropped it 5 cents, their tax bill would be reduced by $150.
But we would lose 2.7 million.
Yeah, and so that's, $1,250 a month. So, but
To
even,
be clear, we don't lose that money. We leave it on the table.
We leave it on the-
Difference.
Yes.
exactly, put $1 million in there.
Is that gonna be your retirement home, Glenn?
Now, I can't even envision this, but I can't. But if someone out there literally had $1 million home, it would save them $480 a year if we dropped it 5 cents.
But this is only on M and O. That's not the total tax rate.
Well, we wouldn't drop it on INS. So yes, it is a total tax rate. We wouldn't drop it on INS because we wouldn't meet our debt obligation.
But
So this is an M and O of 5 cents, which in turn is your total for 5 cents. I mean, you're right. I could start with 140 or the total tax rate and do 5, but it's the same. But it's your M and O is what we're looking at.
But I go back to the 2015-16 numbers. I would hate to be dealing with a 1.67 right now. That's a bigger pill to swallow.
Again, I don't blame the state for doing what they did. There are probably lots of districts out there that would have kept it at 117 no matter what their values were. Now, you probably would have a room full of people when you came to adopt a tax rate if you did that. So I'm not necessarily blaming the state for doing what they're doing because they did up their ante. They upped their, they said, look, we're going to do a tax relief bill and we'll make up the difference with state aid. And they did that. So it didn't hurt schools. HB3 actually helped us and infused a lot of money and we're very grateful for what it did.
All right.
Thank you.
You're going.
Sorry, that was a little long-winded, but.
Oh, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Any more questions?
And if you guys have questions in the meantime, always feel free to reach out to Mr. Graham.
Absolutely. Anytime.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is our consent agenda. So just a reminder, if you have clarifying questions on any of these items, you can ask clarifying questions. If we need to have any discussion about them, we'll need to pull them out and do that separately. So
I'd like to pull 12C.
Okay.
And just, the reason why I'd like to pull 12C is there's no action being taken on that one. So I think that removing it from the consent for tonight, since there's nothing attached to it, we're not making any changes to it.
Okay. So did anybody else have anything to pull out? So just take a look at that when you're ready.
I'm good.
I actually thought the 12C, they forgot to attach it. So no attachment means no. Okay. Cool.
Right, yeah.
I thought the same thing and I asked.
Good.
Good. Okay. So is there a motion, Morgan, minus 12C?
There is. Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended. What is my wording? All of a sudden, my words are failing me. Omitting
Hardwell, the air conditioning is not working again.
12C.
A motion made by Ms. Hubbard, for a second? Second by Mr. Chavez. So all in favor? Motion passes 7-0. And so maybe in the future, if we could, if there's nothing to be done with budget amendments or any other, just not even include that. That was a little confusing.
Yeah, we'll remove it. It's one of those standing items because there's usually one. There weren't any.
As far as budget amendments, it's always been just a placeholder, but we'll pull it if we don't have it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, up next are our action items, and I'd like to bring item 13E up to the top in front of 13A, since we have guests. That way they can share their information and get going if they need to. So that being said, the consideration and approval of the developers exchange agreement. And we have Mr. Gideon, you can introduce.
Sure, Mr. Bednar and I think your colleague, Mr. Leon. For our new board members, wanted to bring you up to speed real quickly. You probably have deduced from the information. We have a developer exchange agreement. One of the beauties of fast growth districts is occasionally you'll get a very, what I consider strong developer that will come to a school district. They will look at us as an opportunity to maybe convey property or partner with us and the city through a development agreement in which a school might land in a subdivision. That theoretically helps them flip houses. Now, this is pretty unique. It's the first time I've ever experienced it. I've done annexation, de-annexations where we've modified school boundaries on a small scale in the country, but this is a wholesale swap of land that is in two different taxing entities, Pflugerville ISD, Hutto ISD. It involves the city of Pflugerville. It involves the city of Hutto. The Teeman Cattle Company, is that the correct formal name, Mr. Bednar?
I think it's Land Cattle and Development Company.
Right. Some of you may, who have lived in this community, know the history of this family. They're large-scale developers down on the southern boundaries of our district, primarily in the Travis County Pflugerville ISD zone. They're very well known for working with Pflugerville ISD to develop their developments so that there are school sites and parks and other amenities. They have a project that they've been wanting to do for the last couple of years, in which part of this development will lie in Travis County and part of it will lie in Williamson County, or in two different school districts. And rather than separating the children in that community and keep them whole, they came to us about taking undeveloped property, swapping with Pflugerville some amount of acreage comparable to our acreage, and that'll be all in the exhibits that you would have had a chance to review. And it takes a bunch of different stages and steps to work through all of that. In the end, we are going to be gifted a conveyance of 20 acres for a future elementary school site. It's a very nice piece of property. Some of our board members had a chance to go and look at it. So that comes to our taxpayers at no cost. There are some other things that are tied up in the exchange, including the bringing of utilities close to, so that when we do develop and when it's time for voters, the entire voting population to vote on a bond for an elementary school down in the southeast, some of the infrastructure will be in place. So that helps us out. And all of this is to help sweeten the pie, politely saying, so that this exchange of property can go forward. It involves us and the developer. It will involve discussions between the two city entities because there's an exchange of territorial boundaries. So that's kind of a real broad brush, but I'm going to bring Mr. Bednar up to talk about what your action is tonight. And then we can also discuss further if there are any additional questions. It's a good deal. I think the partnership with the Teeman family benefits not only us, but also Pflugerville ISD because the land that we would swap out will be developed and those youngsters would go to the elementary schools zoned in Pflugerville ISD. And the tax value exchange is dictated to be comparable. So we don't lose, they don't lose, we don't gain, they don't gain necessarily, if that makes some sense. So that a good enough spiel, I guess. Mr. Bednar?
Thank you, Mr. Gideon.
Legalese of this is difficult, but he can certainly take us through it.
Well, I don't want to complicate things any more than necessary. May it please the board. I'm Bill Bednar.
I've been associated in one way or another with your general counsel, Sarah Leon, for over 16 years. And it's been an honor and pleasure to work with her in these kinds of things. I don't have any particular specialty except I've practiced school law for over 40 years. And a large part of it has been boundary work of one kind or another, adjusting school district boundaries. And when you stop to think about it, we need to have a much easier way of changing school boundaries than we do. We've got an old antiquated statute for detaching territory and annexing it from one district and annexing it to another school district. It's very cumbersome, time consuming. But we have another provision in the code that if the taxable value in the parcel is low enough, and I'm talking now about section 13.131 of the education code, the two districts may simply agree with one another to adjust their boundary. And that is the statute that we're proceeding under here today. I provided a resolution to your superintendent, which would authorize the superintendent to go ahead and execute what we are calling the developers exchange agreement. And it is a rather lengthy document. The document itself is not that lengthy, but the exhibits are. And I'm a little uncertain, Dr. Estrada Thomas, what the status of, has that been distributed with the board materials? Has the board had an opportunity to look at that?
Yes, sir. It is in the board packet. All the attachments are there.
The board last considered this subject back in November. And the developers exchange agreement that was presented and approved by the board then is essentially the same as the one we're presenting tonight. There have been a few minor changes that I've worked out with Mr. Tiemann. We wanted, for example, the agreement to run with the land so that if unexpected circumstances occur and some other developer would succeed to the land, that all of the obligations that the developer would be undertaking in this agreement would run with the land, so that any successor developer would also be under the same obligations. We have that language in the agreement. The other major change, which is not really major, but it's different, is the agreement with Pflugerville Independent School District to actually accomplish the exchange of territory. We had a draft which the board considered as an exhibit to the exchange agreement, developers exchange agreement last November. But Pflugerville's council wanted several modifications to it. In fact, it looks very much different now than it did then, but it accomplishes exactly the same thing. So in substance, it is the same, although it has dramatically, it's much simpler and shorter than the agreement we had previously presented to the board. So those are the two major changes that have been made to the developers exchange agreement. And it's important to understand just how these two agreements are going to work. We are under no obligation to enter into this agreement with Pflugerville until the developer has satisfied all of the obligations spelled out in the agreement to the Hutto Independent School District. It involves conveying parcel C, which is the school side. It involves the demolition of a house that's on that school site. It involves payment of all of your attorney's fees and Pflugerville's attorney's fees incurred in producing the documentation and providing the legal services to get this accomplished. And there are several other provisions, but those are the main ones. I'm very satisfied that we're in full compliance, of course, with Chapter 13 of the Education Code. Mr. Gideon has already advised you of the substance of the, remember, this is property that lies along Row Lane down on the southern boundary of the school districts. And unless there are any questions that any board member has that I can answer about either of the agreements, I would just be prepared at this point to recommend that you adopt the resolution and let your superintendent go forward.
Anyone have any questions? Is there a motion?
Yes. Oh, go ahead. Ask your question.
Not a question for you, but a question for you guys. The team and company, I've known them for, I don't know, since middle school, almost 20 years now. Also were contributors. I'm thinking of the word recuse myself from the vote. I don't want to abstain, but I need to.
Okay.
Okay. Make sure I had the right language.
You did.
Okay. Is there a motion?
There is, but I think my only option in board book is to either abstain with conflict, which is what that sounds like you were describing. Right? Okay, I just wanted to, all right.
Okay.
I will make a motion that the board approve the resolution approving the developers exchange agreement as presented.
Motion made by Ms. Hubbard. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Owens. All in favor? Okay, motion passes.
Are there any further questions for me? Dr. Estrada Thomas, I know that you had a question about the Open Meetings Act. I think that we have resolved that in favor of just going ahead and adopting the developers agreement, and that it's broad enough since the agreement with Pflugerville is an exhibit to that agreement, and the resolution authorizes you to do all things necessary to implement it. I think that you're free to go ahead and at the appropriate time enter the agreement with Pflugerville. That would not preclude the board from bringing it back if it wants to, but I think that you're clear under the Open Meetings Act to go ahead
All right, yes,
with both agreements.
okay. Thank you, Mr. Bednar. Yes.
Motion passes, hold on, 6-0, noting that Mr. Matlock has abstained. Okay.
Madam President, if I make one comment, make the two board members that are new aware. Mr. Philip Boutwell pointed it out a few months back in discussion. Right now, Hutto ISD is in the contiguous boundaries of Williamson County. We're now going to be having Travis County residents in this development. So that will be down the road, Travis County voters who will have to vote in BIHISD elections, pardon me, and their taxing purposes will also be in a different taxing entity. So just wanted to make you aware of that in case you get some questions from your stakeholders. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. If there are no further questions.
Yes, sir, of course. Thank you so much for waiting. Thank you for your patience.
Thanks for having us.
All right, thank you, Sarah. It's good to see you.
Much. Good seeing you guys.
Next up, Mr. Graham.
Yes, board. Every 5 years, well, actually, every 2 years is when the district can enter in a contract with the depository of our choice. We go out for RFPs. TEA allows us to have an automatic extension. We could have 3 2-year extensions, and we're requesting that the board approve a 2-year extension with our current depository of Wells Fargo, pending your approval.
All right, is there a motion?
Yes, I will make a motion to agree and accept the board resolution as presented, extending the depository contract for the funds of Hutto ISD under Texas Education Code, Chapter 45, Subchapter G, School District Depositories.
Did you make that motion?
I did, yes, ma'am.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Turner. Any questions?
Can I ask a procedural question? Linda, I'm just putting abstain without conflict for Philip and Edgar because they're still in here.
Okay, all in favor? Motion passes.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
All right, and next, Mr. Cardwell.
Good evening, Madam President, trustees. We're coming to you with a $200,000 change order to the Hutto Elementary School modernization project. In the PowerPoint, you'll see the three items that we're going to come to you to add back into this project with that change order. The first one being the gym floor layout. I want to say since Howard Norman, we've had this layout, and what it does is it allows the gym teacher to do different activities with the students. They have pacer lines, different things like that that they do, Foursquare. And we rolled it over from Howard Norman to Curly. The gym floor at Nadine was damaged due to some different things. And so we replaced it, put these same lines in there. Anyway, it was not put into the HES project in the original bid. And in order to get these lines on there, it's an additional $9,600. And so this is part of that change order that we want to bring to y'all. The second item is some lighting controls were missed. Yes, I get aggravated with the engineer that drew up the plans, but so the controls didn't make it into the original bid, and it aggravates me, but we would have had to pay for those lighting controls anyway, because we need to add them back in there because they were missed. Last but not least, and this is, I feel, the most important of the three items, is the collaboration split, the collaboration space that was not put back in when we were doing our VE exercises. We left it out because of the cost in order to get this project into the GMP, into budget. We left it out. Speaking with Gay, speaking with other staffers, they're saying, you know, we talk this equity, kindergarten, first, second, fourth, and fifth are going to have this collaboration space. Why can't our third grade we have it? And Henry and I agreed upon that. And so that's why one of the three things that we're coming to you today is to allow us to add this back into the project. We decided just to round it up to 200,000. And what that will do, it will give us a little bit more money to manage this project with through the summer. Again, we will continue to be transparent with you with any amount of money that we spend out of this, and whatever we don't spend out of this 5,800 will be put back into our bond funds that we can use elsewhere. One of the things I just want to remind you of, we just did a deductive change order for the Hutto Elementary School, for the elementary school renovations, about, I want to say around 496,000. So we have some money to play with. And so that's what we're coming before you tonight with.
And this 200,000 exceeds what would be authorized in our ability to raise the GMP. So therefore it has to be approved by y'all, because you physically are setting that final budget. And so this would be a change order to increase the original GMP. And our goal always has been with Hutto Elementary, equity as it relates to those elementary renovation projects. And then of course to match what we've done with Curly. And it being the oldest elementary school, it was a source of pride for us to go after that and really bring it up to speed. So this will help us get there. And we think that hedging our bets, we won't have any undiscovered, additional things that will come up. Obviously, when you do dirty builds and old buildings, you will find some costs that might not have been encountered by our engineers that will have to tackle, so that additional amount sits in an owner's contingency in our weekly OAC meetings. If something comes up through an internal change order proposal, then we can tackle it. And if we don't spend it, it goes back into the INS budget.
Are these lighting controls going to be installed in every room at the school?
Yes, sir. So let's say they were designed in 2 out of the 3 wings. Well, they missed a wing essentially.
Okay.
Of putting them in there. And so we're wanting to put them back in there so that
It's important.
It's, yes, so it's.
It's the efficiency of saving money down the road.
Yes, sir.
This pays, this small investment pays for itself in the next 10 years. Because this is part of our smart technologies, our energy management plans, a lot of the standardizations that we use to design our buildings. I was telling somebody the other day that, you know, we're expecting the new 9th grade center to be as energy efficient in an annual basis, and then some of our elementary schools will be on a monthly basis because of the smart technologies. This enables us to have better controls. So it pays for itself, but it's a payout, right?
Ms. Turner?
Yes, can you go back to the slide about the gym floor?
Yes, ma'am.
I was just wondering, I noticed not all the elementary schools are listed on there. So as far as equity goes, is there any plan in the future to do that to the schools that don't have it currently?
We've tackled we are tackling the Cottonwood Elementary School. Or have we done that already?
We did.
Yeah, Cottonwood.
I apologize. It didn't make it on this
Okay.
list. So as we're changing out the gym floors, they are getting these.
Mr. Matlock?
Expected completion timeline for the third one.
So according to the contractors, they will be ready by the start of school.
Busy summer.
Yes.
There's so much we want to do this summer.
But that's all indoor build, though. It's not dependent on the weather, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
I think as far as that project being impacted by the weather, except for some site work that still needs to be done, they're dried in, so this should be not an issue. Baird Williams will be pretty soon. And we have had to, and kudos to Ms. Rosser and their staff. They have endured multiple room changes throughout the year. They will be displaced for the summer. And God bless her, she has been there at our OAC meetings and has been with those superintendents on that site. And so, hey, there she is, the unsung hero.
Yeah, the unsung hero.
But there's light at the end of the tunnel, and what a beautiful, project this will be. But yeah, we're nervous about all the projects, completing, and we always, want to be transparent with you. But they're all committed to making it happen. So
It's looking good from the outside. Big difference from.
Oh, no, you walk into that new wing and it's just, yes, transformational. It's really neat.
All right. Do we have a motion?
Yes, I'll make a motion to approve the change order AIA-G701-2017 for the Hutto Elementary Modernization Project in the amount of $200,000 to be placed into owner's contingency.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made by Ms. Hubbard and second by Mr. Chavez. Any questions? All in favor? Motion passes 7-0.
thank you, board.
Thank y'all.
Let's see.
Jay said thank you. You're welcome.
Did you have a PowerPoint for it? It should have been in the board book. Next item is the
Utility easement.
Encore.
Y'all have the PowerPoint in front of you. And we just came to y'all a few months ago with the one for transportation. What the PowerPoint does is gives you an exhibit of where the easement is located. And all it does is allow Encore to transformer on our site, run utilities underneath the ground in that area that's dotted out. And in order to supply power for the stadium and for the concessions and restrooms on that south side as well. So that's it's pretty standard of the easements we come to y'all with for those. So, but I like to share the exhibit with you. I'd like to share the Google Earth image of it and then what they give you, which shows you.
If you want to refer to. Okay. It's a standard real estate transaction essentially, but So therefore, as board members, you hold in trust all real property transactions, so you have to approve these easements.
All right, is there a motion?
Yes, I'll make a motion to approve the utility easement and right-of-way agreement with Encore Energy at Hutto Memorial Stadium.
Is there a second?
Second.
A motion made by Ms. Hubbard and second by Mr. Owens. Any questions?
Thank you, Brandon. Thank you.
All in favor? Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you, board.
Thank you.
Thank you. Up next, Dr. Sermani.
We've already seen the ESSER presentation, so this is your opportunity to, I guess, you heard it, now you can read it if you want to, and emphasize that you did approve personnel that won't be funded in 2 years, because that was the main point of you having to take a vote to show that the state of Texas that you do recognize that fact.
Okay, is there a motion?
There is. I will make a motion to approve the ESSER 3 plan and authorize the superintendent to hire for the positions requested within the ESSER plan.
Is there a second? Okay, motion made by Ms. Hubbard and second by Mr. Chavez. Any questions? Did you have a question, Felix? Okay. All in favor? Motion passes.
We're anxiously waiting, so I will let you.
Okay. And then finally, Dr. Thomas.
Okay, so this one is about the mask policy. As you know, the governor issued an order on May the 18th, releasing all governmental entities from, not releasing them, but making them not require any masks on any school property and other locations. Anyhow, that mask policy does not begin until June 4th. And so today was the last day with kids. Tomorrow's the last day, the last work day with staff. This is just a minor request that you allow us to begin the no mask policy on Tuesday after we get back from Memorial Day, rather than waiting until that Friday. It's just a good way to start after Memorial Day and release people from having to wear their masks right after we come back from break.
So to be clear, this is, there won't be a mask mandate, but if staff want to wear masks, they are free to. And
yes, ma'am. Yes.
Students as well.
Yes. Yes.
And I don't know if perhaps if that's going to be something that we, I guess, allow for the foreseeable future, do we need to, obviously not this evening, but do we have to make adjustments to the dress code, allowing for masks to be worn?
No, because we'll include that option to wear masks by kids or staff in the safety plan. That's always allowable.
Okay.
And so this action tonight is just for those dates, June 1st.
It's just for those 3 days.
Yes.
Yes.
But we would move forward. We were going to move forward with that at June 4th, moving forward anyway.
Yes, ma'am.
So that's why I was asking if it needs to be addressed in the dress code, if we're now saying, because I think our current dress code does not allow for face covering. I don't think we ever went back and adjusted the dress code during this COVID period. So might be something to look.
Okay, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
No, but either way, when does summer school start? Tuesday, June 2nd. So we'll just make sure we communicate that with our summer school principals, and we'll put it out in the communication that obviously that I'll send out tomorrow, beginning on Tuesday.
Is that Tuesday? Is June 2nd Tuesday?
June 2nd is Wednesday, June 1st.
Okay.
is Tuesday.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I said June 2nd because I think that's when the kids come back for summer school, for summer learning.
It's the Monday, it's throwing us off.
Yes.
Second is the first day kids are back. June 1st is
Tuesday.
The summer school teachers are reporting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Good point, Morgan, and we can just double check that dress code.
Yes, we will.
Okay, so is there a motion?
Yes, I'll make a motion to approve the removal of the district's mandatory mask policy beginning Tuesday, June 1st.
And is there a second?
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Hubbard and second by Ms. Turner. Any other questions? All in favor? Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you.
Okay. So then our board calendar. This is a time, James and Amy, if you guys have something that you'd like to add to the agenda for our next meeting, make note of that here. And then always like future dates and that kind of thing. Don't forget for you guys, June 1st is new member orientation. And everybody makes a note for June 10th. And then San Antonio.
So everyone should have a calendar invite for the June 10th joint board meeting with the city, and that'll be at City Hall.
And then the last thing is we said that we were going to just do an after meeting action or review, just to see, check in, see how, kind of to monitor ourselves and see how the meeting, we felt like the meeting went. If there's something that we need to address, it's a good time to bring that up. Let's address it. So that kind of thing in your folders. Do you guys have folders? Should have the meeting norms attached in front of that. So, and we'll talk a little more about that at the orientation, but a chance if we need to add something to this or something isn't clear. So lost my questions. Okay, so the first question is, you can just like answer with thumbs up, thumbs sideways, or thumbs down. Was our meeting efficient and effective tonight? And so one of our norms is to speak up and speak freely and be transparent. I didn't see everybody's thumb.
Oh.
Okay. The second one is, did we stay true to our norms tonight?
I would say yes. Can I just say?
Hold on.
Oh,
Did you vote?
Oh, no.
No.
I didn't, because I never vote. So I get to vote this time, right?
I was gonna say that using the hands raising feature is different for us, but I think it went really well,
Yeah, and
honestly.
I apologize because I kept raising my hand and I thought it was raised my hand, but I wasn't following you. So it's kind of.
Yes, yeah, and
And it does take a little bit of getting used to. It's a new thing for us, so.
Went off course one time.
so are you the only one that can see when somebody raises their hand?
I think so, because she's the leader.
I'm leading the
Oh,
meeting.
because she's the leader. Okay. All right, so I'll just be mindful of that, because I thought,
yeah, because you're not trusting me.
I messed up, like I was about to, and I went, oh, yeah. I reminded.
Accountability.
I remembered though.
You remember, yeah, because I saw you raising your hand, so I thought she hadn't seen you, but you had done it online. Okay.
So, okay. Well, did anybody have any future agenda items?
Just requesting that additional information regarding the tax rate with the request that I made and then the request that Shara made, just making sure that was got on.
So what was could you rephrase those requests? I don't know if Glenn caught them.
I can send it in an email, but essentially what I was asking for was the tax rates that were presented in the presentation, including the tax rates what we currently received. And your request was the cost per student?
Yeah, just
based on projected.
Justify that difference based on projected increase in students if possible, but it sounds like, I don't know how possible that is to get that information.
Okay.
Because we do have projected numbers and he has fixed cost.
Had a number, but then I know there's additional things that will be shared in October, it sounds like as well, with like admin.
Right.
Yeah, because they do come in and do an audit, but I'm wondering if that's in one of your others. Well, we'll get together with them, because I think in one of the previous slides, we had that amount. Because he had, and I don't know if you were
I guess if we could just take that amount per student, but the missing information for me is what was the estimated increase in students that we're expecting for next year?
Okay.
So I can
We'll get that information as far as like
Yeah.
what they're projecting our growth next week, right?
Yeah.
New demographic reports.
Yeah, when is Templeton coming?
They'll be here, first week of June.
Okay.
They're still looking at 800 to 900 now. Mr. Graham and y'all typically will adopt fewer kids based on ADA.
Right.
So there's a more conservative approach. But there's always that, we had that COVID slide, and even though we grew to 7% last year, there's always that first year that the demographer goes back and re-hits the switch, you're gonna see a bump and then a level. So it then becomes that juggling act, and really it's Glenn's best guess as to what the budget should be based on. But the first week in June, we'll get an analysis and an update, and we'll get that out to you ASAP.
Okay, we can add that to the agenda for sure. And you guys, this isn't the only time. If you think of things that you wanted to add, always you can email us and let us know throughout the month too.
When is the next bond meeting?
The bond oversight?
In June, and that'll be, you lost one member, right? Yeah, two members, so you'll need to replace yourselves.
Mhm. So we'll be doing that once we talked with them through the orientation.
Yeah, I can postpone that meeting because I think it's going to be in mid-June. I have to ask Brandon, he's working on the agenda. We can postpone it until y'all decide who the new 2 board members will be that will serve on that oversight committee.
Okay. Okay. So our last action of the night, who's going to do it?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Motion made by Mr. Owens
A second.
and second by Mr. Chavez. All in favor of adjourning? Motion passes
Welcome, Amy and
at
everything.
10:46.
Is someone?
No, not.